All right, we hope, a little loud here, we're ready to start the joint public hearing with the Intergovernmental Relations Committee and the Municipal Operation Committee. This will be a joint public hearing in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This meeting will be conducted both in person and virtually via Google Meets. This joint public hearing will be held by the Committees on Municipal Operations and Intergovernmental Relations on Thursday, January 9th, 2025 at 7 p.m. And I know it's a little after right now, it is now 7:09 p.m. to discuss the special town meeting articles listed below on the agenda. The meeting may be recorded and may be broadcast live over SMAC. Tonight's meeting is not being broadcast live, by the way. We are preempted by the planning board. And it could be recorded, it is being recorded for later broadcasts for TV, SMAC TV, and over the internet. Let me just read, to participate in the joint public hearing, it's on Google Meets. It's google.com/cxwyxzm-jte. And the joint public hearing can also be accessed by telephone, dialing 559-537-6542, and the PIN is 679-702-980#. This meeting is called to order. Please rise if you are able to recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please be seated. As I mentioned, this is a joint public hearing, Municipal Operations Committee and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. And we do have a number of people online from some of the committees. So we're going to have to, when we take votes and everything, we need to do roll calls, just a reminder to everybody. And also, if we could start with a roll call to see if we can officially open the public hearing for each committee. Why don't we start with Intergovernmental? Frank, would you help me to take the roll call?
Sure. All right, so Martha Stewart. Martha Sampson. All right, Martha's here. Jennifer Sears.
Here.
She's online. Thank you, Jennifer.
And Alicia Rinaldi.
Present.
She's online. Thank you, Alicia.
Janice Snyder.
Present.
And Frank Lyons, it's just me, and I am here.
Okay, let's also ask for Lindsay Weber. Is she online? I just want to officially.
I'm online.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, sorry, Lindsay, I didn't have you checked off.
Yep. And Janai Megal Singh. I apologize for mispronouncing that name. Janai, are you available online? I don't see you. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 present, Frank, for intergovernmental. So you do have a quorum.
We have a quorum?
So you can open your meeting in just a moment. Let's take, since we're taking roll call, let's see if we have Muni Ops Committee present. Donna Flynn? I'm sorry, Cynthia Walsh, you're the chair. I apologize for jumping in there. Did you want to take the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Donna Flynn? John DeStefano? Cynthia Walsh is here. Scott Heller?
Present.
Eileen McGuire? Francis Brutinetti?
Here.
Winchell Laguerre?
Here.
Janice McKenna? Well, the good news is we have a quorum.
Very good news. Thank you, Cynthia, for taking the roll call. Thank you, Frank, for taking your roll call. All right. First up is, well, since this is a joint hearing, each chair, I'm temporarily appointing Frank Lyons as the chair for intergovernmental. If anybody else would like to be the chair of intergovernmental, just please let me know right now. Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a motion from intergovernmental. I should open the public hearing first. Can I get a motion from somebody from intergovernmental to open the Intergovernmental Relations Committee public hearing?
So moved.
Is that you, Janice Snyder?
Yes, it is.
All right, just going to make a note. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, Frank, I asked you, I'm going to just appoint you temporary. If you could take roll call, ask people to say yea or nay
Okay, so
to open the meeting.
to open the meeting, joint hearing, Martha Sampson, yes or no? Yea or nay? Jennifer Sears,
Yes.
Alicia Rinaldi,
Yes.
Lindsay Weber,
Here.
Janice Schneider,
Yes.
and Frank Lyons myself, yes.
Okay, your hearing's now open. Cynthia Walsh, Chair, would you like to take a roll call?
Donna Flynn? Who made the motion?
Oh, yeah. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for municipal operations?
I second the motion.
Well, you want to make the motion?
Yes, I make the motion.
Sure. That's John DeStefano,
I'll second it. Fran?
Fran Brutonetti. Roll call.
Donna Flynn? Joe DeStefano?
Here.
Would be yes or no.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Cynthia Walsh votes yes. Scott?
Yes.
Eileen? Fran?
Yes.
Winchell?
Yes.
Thank you. And Janice McKenna?
Not present.
Okay.
Okay, so now I declare that the public hearing for Municipal Operations Committee is also open. All right. So both committees now open for the public hearing. First up is Article 1, Elementary School Building Project. Is the TJ Recupero and your party present? For those people in the audience, there is some documentation up here if you like to come up and get it. And the agendas are also up here too. Just help yourselves. And this is a joint public hearing. We don't get together too often, a couple times a year, so we're a little rusty at this, but we're going to get through this evening, okay? Thank you. So if the gentleman at the front table, if you can introduce yourselves, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to Madam Chair, your committees, Mr. Chair, your committee. I think I have everyone. And to the audience, of course, my name is TJ Recupero. I'm on the School Building Committee.
Joe Byetta, Superintendent of Schools.
We're here representing the School Building Committee and the article and petitioners of Article 1. I don't believe we have anybody else from the committee, but Lindsay Kreckler from the School Committee is, of course, here this evening. Fran Brutonetti is your delegate to the School Building Committee. So this is an article that was approved by town meeting last spring. It was for a slightly revised appropriation amount, which I'll explain, and it had almost identical text, save one change, which I will also explain. So we took the first of all, let me get back to why we're back in front of town meeting with another article. By statute, when a debt exclusion is approved when an appropriation is approved at town meeting for a debt exclusion, you have a limited amount of time to have that debt exclusion approved, after which the appropriation expires. And it needs to be reappropriated, which is why we're here tonight. We are in the about the third or fourth month of an extension granted from MSBA for providing the town's share of the project costs. The way it works is once it's approved by MSBA, the town has 120 days to secure its portion of the funding, which in this case, as of last spring, was going to be approximately $66 million. That's been revised, as I'll explain in a moment. But so we have 120 days to do that. The debt exclusion vote came up in June. That failed. We went back to MSBA. They send you a letter and they ask what your intention is. So we asked them for an extension of time until the fall so that we could figure out what we were going to do at that point. We had spent 2+ years in the feasibility study and $1 million in the feasibility study process for this, and we were reluctant to start over. Plus, this is by far the best solution for the town, which we'll also explain. Through no shortage of lobbying and I think goodwill on the part of MSBA, they did something they had never done before, which is extend us out the length of time that they did, which is to April, in this case, after the April election. They've granted us an extension, which is well beyond the 120 days that their regulations require. So, and as Dr. Baeta will tell you, it's never been done before. There's only one that's even remotely comparable, and you could qualify that. I could tell you the story of this particular district, as could Dr. Baeta, but they'd never done this before. We were grateful that they had. We wanted to preserve all the work and all the thought that went into this project, and they agreed with us. So the condition of extending us through the April election, and we chose that because we didn't want the expense of another special election, so they granted us an extension through the annual election so that there would be no additional expense of an election. The condition that MSBA set on that is that we could not change the scope of the project. So we looked at it and we wanted to show some form of good faith that we were, of course, cognizant of cost, which we have been from the beginning, cognizant of cost, and that we could show town meeting that we weren't just representing the same project in the same form without change. So we changed what we could, given MSBA's parameters, to not change the scope, and we proposed a change of the delivery method. The delivery method that we priced the project out at was with construction management at risk. That comes with a CM at risk fee. So if we remove that and did it as a traditional design bid build project, we could take out that. There are reasons why I would want to do construction management at risk every day of the week. And we did at the high school and came in about $5 or $6 million under budget. So in this case, I would still like to do CM at risk, but in this case, we were trying to show something to town meeting and the residents that we were cognizant of cost. So we reduced the project cost by $1.25 million. The cost that was approved last spring, we reduced that by $1.25 million, which is the cost of the CM at risk fee adjusted because the lapse of time. We're now in a new construction cycle. We were uncertain as to cost escalations, so we couldn't take the whole fee out. We needed to account for that somehow. 1.25 seemed like a safe amount. I still think we'll be well below that, but suffice to say, we didn't want to shortchange ourselves and we wanted to be safe. We also wanted something that MSBA would approve, because every time we submit an article to town meeting, they have to approve the language, and in this case, they did. So the article that you have before us is the same amount appropriated by town meeting, reduced by $1.25 million. The other change in the article is we added in the South School parcel itself. It's about a 7.5 acre parcel off of Ash Street. We added that into the scope of the appropriation. The significance of that is that it was possible that If there was any contingency funds left over at the end of construction, that those could be used by the town for demolition or disposition of the South School property and building. Adding that parcel into the text, that would be up to bond counsel, and we didn't want to risk that. So adding that parcel into the text and into the scope of the article removed all doubt. So if the project comes in under budget, which we all fully expect, and there are contingency funds left, once the policymakers decide what they want to do with the former South School parcel, that 7.5 acre parcel, that contingency money will, at their discretion, will be available for use for demolition, marketing, you name it. But that's not for me to decide. That's a policy decision of the select board later. So that explains the article. I don't want to, I'd be happy to talk about the building and what's in it, but it seems like, as it did with the Finance Committee last night, almost everybody knows what the building is, what it looks like, and what's in it. And nobody seems interested in talking about the educational components as much as the cost and how we pay for it, which is, it was with the high school too. So I'm not surprised by that. So be happy to answer any questions about the building itself, but I'd rather pass off to Dr. Baeta so we're not here listening to me until 10:30 p.m. Thank you.
I apologize. Could I just jump in for 1 sec? I do have your presentation online if you want me to show anything, let me know.
This presentation? I mean, it's up to you. If anybody wants to see renderings of the buildings or renderings of a floor plan, I think the document that most people would want to see might be this budget summary page. This is sheet 3. Yeah, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 4 of the presentation. Yeah, that has to deduct out the feasibility study amount, right? Perfect. So this is a revised budget summary. The MSBA has set our reimbursement rate at 65.98%. That's calculated based on a formula using 3 criteria: community wealth, community poverty, and I think community demographics. Should have looked that up since last night, but it's 3 criteria. They
Is there
set it.
any highway in the United States where you can go at least 85 miles an hour?
Excuse me, if you could, people at home, if you could silence your microphones, we appreciate that. We're just getting some feedback. Thank you. Sorry, TJ, go ahead.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So 65.98% is our reimbursement rate. I believe on the high school it was 59 and change percent. The net, if you look at this down in blue underneath the left-hand column, that nets out to about 42% of the total project cost, because not everything on a school project is reimbursable under MSBA regulations. Last night with the Finance Committee, we talked pretty well about the site improvements, and there's an 8% cap. They will reimburse 8% of your site costs, but it's capped at that also, and that's actually raised from what it used to be, I believe. So, and our site costs on this property are pretty significant. So those aren't reimbursable, and things like MSBA wants to pay for things that have a contribution to education, if you can sum it up. They don't want to spend money on, best example I can think of is that with the high school, they were very strict on, they are no longer, but they were very strict on what they would pay for an auditorium, and we wanted it larger, and they wouldn't do it because they don't want to pay for large empty space that people use a limited number of times per year, and have it heated and air conditioned in all other times that it's not used. They want to pay for educational construction. So that's very general summary of what they want to pay for, and that's 65.98% reimbursement rate on our project cost nets out to about 42% of the total project cost. So that will be the equivalent to the town of $47 million, plus or minus, a little more than $47 million, which they reimburse us for. We pay the cost, they reimburse us, happens pretty quickly, and it's actually a pretty good formula too, and all parties track it online as it's going on. So in our case, the design that we chose, I know that the people look at it, and for some it seems elaborate. It's actually very utilitarian. That the reason why you have a building shaped like a pinwheel up 3 stories is because you can maximize your reimbursable space. Because one of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to get a certain number of students in a certain grade from point A to, actually, I'm invading Dr. Baetta's, you're trying to get them from point A to point B in a certain period of time. And if you have a different layout, you can't always do that without losing reimbursable space. Now, I'll say this, and I will pass off then, I promise you, Joe. Nobody on the building committee, project team, or anybody involved in this project minimizes the fact that $113 million is a significant amount of money. And the $64 million, if you look at, I should make one note that Dr. Baeta pointed out, is that the black number there at the bottom, the line in black that says 65,239,843, that is without deducting out the feasibility study amount of $1 million. So it's actually $64,239,843. And I should point out also, there's about $5.5 million worth of contingency. If you look at the 3 lines up under the line that says subtotal, you'll see contingency for $4,591,974 and $833,563. That's about $5.5 million plus of contingency that we hope never to use. We will have to, no doubt, because there are always unexpected things that come up on these projects, but we hope not to, and we hope to be under budget significantly on this. So with any luck and some good management, I suspect that this is a project that will come in under $60 million for the town, and hopefully we'll be able to do some, actually I know we'll be able to do some value engineering, and I think we'll be well under the $60 million amount. Having said that, I don't want to drone on any longer. I'd rather pass off to Dr. Baeta, but I thank you for your time, and we welcome any questions.
Mr. Moderator, through you, and Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'll just simply bring up something, since we're talking about finances, that today I received from the MSBA the following, and I quote, "Good morning, Superintendent. The MSBA updated its third-party funding policy in June of '23, which we knew, to allow for federal and state grants, rebates, and other sources of funding that districts could use to assist with funding their projects. See Project Advisory 83. This allows districts to use and fully benefit from many available third-party funding sources, including the tax credits available from the Federal Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, and other state or federal funding, donations, or other sources of project income that districts may receive for the purchase, installation, and operation of sustainable system. In most cases, this type of funding will not lower the project cost basis or reduce the amount of grant funding that the districts will receive from the MSBA," end quote. And then it provides us the actual link to all of the sources that are available, of which our architect and owner project manager are very aware of. The most recent project that is just completed received rebates of $2.45 million. We anticipate that ours will be higher, but of course, I can't give you an exact number that would be coming off the cost. As I've stated to you before, and even last night, we are in a perfect storm in Stoughton of need in this particular case, an increase in enrollment, and what I think is also the third part, which is fiscal long-term responsibility. The need, I don't think I need to get into. We've heard over and over again the issues that are happening at the South School. The enrollment number continues to grow every year. We're up 58 more students this year. Our projected enrollment in Stoughton over the next 10 years is to go from the 3,850 we're at now to over 4,300 students by 2033. So we are considered a growing community. We're increasing our enrollment over the next 10 years by over 7%, while the Commonwealth is actually losing 7% of student population, or over 40,000 students. So we're caught in this perfect storm in Stoughton if those numbers continue. I just came from a 6 o'clock redistricting committee, its second meeting. We will be redistricting no matter the decision of, regardless of the decision on April 1st. If we build a new building, we'll be redistricting. Of course, we'll have more time to be able to do that by repurposing the Wilkins School into a early childhood center and closing both the South and the Jones. Without a new building, we would be moving towards modulars at the Hanson, Daw, Gibbons, and as of last week, potentially the Wilkins as well because of the increase in enrollment. And those modulars we would also be moving towards redistricting students. The long-term cost for modulars is that it's a short-term fix. It's approximately 10 to 15 years that you get out of them. These are not fixed into the ground. They're not considered permanent structures. They will not last what an MSBA requirement project is, which is at least, and that's according to MSBA, at least 50 years. So we're proposing a project that lasts 50 plus years. It will lead to, in my humble opinion, and based on the practice that we've been seeing, it would lead to no new elementary schools in Stoughton in the future. You would look at worst at renovation addition projects at both the Hanson and predominantly at the Gibbons and the Daw. You would only literally going forward be looking at a significant issue with the middle school. The Wilkins School, which it has a lot of discussion, is being repurposed into an early childhood. We just finished bathrooms there through town meeting, as you know, and we did an MSBA accelerated repair both for windows and roofs at the Wilkins. Our last project there is electrification project within which we'll be going through we've gone through trying to get some grant monies. We haven't gotten that. There'll probably be some type of an article and hopefully matching funds from a grant down the road to be able to do that, which will bring that building to have a good long life, especially with the increase in enrollment in preschool. We currently have 150 students in preschool. That's the highest number we've ever had. We have a waiting list of over 90 currently, and that's just based on families that really know that public schools even offer a preschool. By building for 50 years instead of 10 years, you're saving the taxpayers money. It's that simple. 2 plus 2 in the math department at Stoughton High School is still 4. Hasn't changed. We still teach that 2 plus 2 is 4. And so when you look at the 10 years of modulars and having to come back to the taxpayers again and again for the same building or buildings over time, to me, makes absolutely no fiscal sense. Lastly, it's time to build a new school based on the need, and the need is a shifting demographic, as we know. I just announced yesterday at various meetings that we're starting another therapeutic learning center program for kindergarten at the Wilkins School next year with a classroom of students coming from our current preschool. 15 years ago, I was reminded today, 15 years ago, literally when it looked at the autism spectrum, we had 2 classrooms in the entire district. We're moving into double digits currently and increasing every year. These are our students. They are residents and citizens of this community. They live here, they reside here, they shop here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is none of the other stuff that has been going on. These are our residents. So I urge you to continue to consider this project as the fiscally responsible way of supporting a building project going forward. Thank you.
Madam Chair and to Mr. Chair, may I just briefly add one more thing that I intended to say? Sorry, my
Go
microphone.
right ahead. Thank you, Dr. Bayetta, for your presentation. Go ahead, TJ.
I'll be very brief on this, that I don't want to speak on other articles. I know there are other articles here tonight, but I do want to say, because I think it's relevant, that the cost of, there's a reason why this is, the cost of this building to the town is 64 plus or minus $1 million. That's the project, total project cost. One of which I cited was that we have a hefty cost for site work to get onto the site. It's not cheap and not easy, but it's the best parcel for a school like this. But I should also say that the cost of building schools in Massachusetts in the MSBA program has been going up significantly over the last several years. And I cited that last night, I will hear again, that the median, as of August, because I haven't updated this since August, the median price per square foot to build in the MSBA system, and I imagine any public school building, whether or not you use MSBA, was $832 per square foot. That was as of August. In 2023, it was $770, the median. 2022, it was $669, and 2021, it was $574 per square foot. Beware of the myth that there is a cheaper alternative based on square footage, that we can build a great school for cheap money. That is the median number that you're paying for a school when you're building in Massachusetts, and there's no way else to do it. Last night, there was somebody who cited a couple examples and said, we have 3 examples. I remembered 2 of them, third I didn't, but 3 examples of where they built a great school for cheaper. I looked up 2 of those today. Actually, before I left here last night, someone texted me an article on one of them, Groton Dunstable, where Groton Dunstable was shy $10 million. They had to go back to town meeting for $10 more million before they finished. So even then, they undercut it, but they were building in 2021. That's when they were approved. I have their letters in my pocket. I can show you right now. The cost per square foot in 2021 was $574. If you took that, one of those schools, another one was the Crocker School in Fitchburg, at today's median square footage price, that building would cost $96 million. And you ought to also be careful that when someone cites what the cost is, what cost they're referring to. Is it the cost to the city or town, or is it the project cost together? Because if you're talking about the cost to the city or town, Fitchburg has an 80% reimbursement rate. Groton Dunstable is 50-something, some or other, but Groton Dunstable also underestimated the cost of their project. I wish I knew the third, because I'm sure there's a way that I could have explained why it was cheaper for them. Randolph, I know, had no site costs to speak of like we do. But that one I darn well am going to look into tomorrow. I think that was the 2021 cycle also. Built at $570 per square foot. I don't know what the actual square footage was, cost per square footage, but that was the median. Today it's $832. Multiply the gross square foot of their building, their construction, times their square footage price, and you can easily, in about 2 minutes, figure out that they wouldn't be paying near what they were represented to be paying last night. They'd be paying probably about 60% more. I want to point that out. The myth that there is a cheaper alternative, you can take whatever school there is, whatever shape and size there is, take the square footage, multiply it by the median square footage, cost per square foot in Massachusetts. Median, meaning right in the middle. Not high, not low, right in the middle. That's what that's what a school will cost you in Massachusetts. We know how many square foot we need for whether it's a small school, large school, huge school. We know that. And the job of the building committee over the last 2 years was to study all this through the feasibility study. We did. We looked into all of it. And then there was an independent working group that came around behind us and looked at it again and said, you know what? I don't want to characterize what they said. You can read their report. I submitted it. They said we were right. It was the most cost-effective solution. And that's what MSBA asks you for in the regulation. They don't ask you to come up with a building plan. They ask you to come up with a solution. And that's what we did. And I thank you all for your extended indulgence of my passion for this project. This is a great project. I'm excited about this project. I darn well want to see it built. Dr. Baeta told me something the other day on the phone. I wish we were blasting over loudspeakers everywhere. That you can measure educational performance by new facilities. I know people laugh at that. It makes things better for teachers. Teachers have the better tools to teach with. Kids aren't distracted by humidity and cold and heat and lighting and things like that. They learn better, and you find that out after about 5 years of a new building. It's been about 5 years from the high school. Guess what we found out? We found out that performance has improved. That excites me. I'm excited for this building. I'm excited because schools will improve, people will know schools will improve. It will flood the community with property values now are increasing. Property values will do better later because schools will support this community. They are. We did a good thing in 2016. I want to do this again. This is a great project. I ask you to vote for it, and I thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you both very much for your presentations. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the Municipal Operations Committee. Madam Chair Cynthia Walsh, if you can take over your committee there, appreciate it.
Is there anyone on municipal operations that has questions?
I do. Cynthia, I do.
Okay, John?
It was my understanding that once the school is built, that they may sell the properties of the Jones. How much value can we get for that, for both schools?
You can take a stab.
I mean, we
as
can
well
use
as I
today's figures as an example.
We know what the assessed value
Oh,
is.
the assessed value.
But, so the assessed value of the South School is, the total assessed value is about $5.5 million. That includes the building and the land for 7.5. There's 15 acres behind that. I don't know what that's assessed at. That's additionally, but just to put it in perspective, I was asked this the other day by someone, and until you know the use, you can't really put a dollar figure on it, but I gave a wide range. I said between 2 and 5 million per property, per the South and per the Jones, because it depends on what you do with it.
Well, if we sell both properties, then we can use that to set off the cost of the school, right?
I think that's the intent.
Well, I think that's the route to
ahead,
go.
Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, the select board did take a resolution this past Tuesday supporting the idea that, and of course, they can't force that resolution on the next board, but the next board can consider it, that the sales of the properties could be utilized for the purposes of offsetting this cost. I will tell you, as someone that walks into the Jones School where the central office is every day, with a beautiful park next door, tremendous number of space, various exit ways, I think that piece of property is got some significant worth.
I think by the time the school is built, that figure should go up.
I would,
And then-
I would argue that it probably would. Again, it would all depend on a number of things. Number one, what can you do there? What is the interest in terms of third parties, so on and so forth. So it's, that's a policy decision of the select board and what they decide to do and potentially even town meeting. But it's out of the purview of the school committee, except that the school committee would formally vote to turn over the pieces of property to the select board and then go from there. Now, be mindful that one of the significant changes in the article before you, a little less money, we think it's going to be even less, is also that we've added that if in fact there's some funding at the end of this within the budget, that we can now also potentially look at tearing down the South School, which was not an opportunity in the first article that was sent forward.
Well, what do you think the South School could be used for? Other than,
Well,
instead of tearing it down?
I mean, again, I think that's the policy side of the select board, planning boards, and all of that stuff. That is that's a tough area to build because of, as you know, that the 1958 portion and 1967 portion all go in a kind of a leveled way because of the bedrock and all of that stuff that's over there. But that doesn't mean that a planner couldn't come in. Doesn't mean you couldn't turn it into open space. Doesn't mean you couldn't turn it over into a nice park. Doesn't mean you couldn't sell it to somebody who's going to build something.
Well, whoever buys the property can basically do what they want with it.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a question, Fran?
No, I don't have any questions.
Members on the screen? Anyone have a question? I can't see the screen or read the screen.
Sure, I'll help you out, Cynthia, Madam Chair. Anybody from Municipal Operations that's logged in remotely, anybody have any questions to the presenters? Raise your hands or just start speaking into the microphone. Identify yourself, please. We'll give you a minute or so. Madam Chair, I'm not seeing anybody, but let's give them a couple more seconds.
And I don't have any questions, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Cynthia. Intergovernmental folks, anybody have any questions? Anybody? You gotta use the mic.
Martha, just press the button so it turns green. There you go. You're all set.
I was just wondering if the Jones School property included the Kimball School, because that would be an extra. Pardon me?
Cynthia, your microphone's not on. Your microphone's not on.
But would that be included in the cost if that property
It can't
was-
be included. We don't own it. The town doesn't own that building. It's owned by the Archdiocese of Boston.
There has been I spent time on the Finance Council on the church side, and I know that there's been a lot of discussions about the town taking it over and all that other stuff, but there's nothing there. It is owned and under the responsibility of the Archdiocese of Boston.
I think she's all set.
Oh, okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions on intergovernmental?
I had a question. Are there any restrictions on like selling properties? I was under some impression that there was a restriction from MSBCA about selling like the old school properties. Is that not the case?
Alicia, excuse me, since you're online, could you just state your name so we know for the record?
Yes, Alicia Rinaldi.
Thank you, Alicia.
To answer your question, the MSBA has established a policy since its beginning around the idea of the offsetting costs when selling a piece of property. There's no record of any community having that actual sale of that property then being taken away from the actual project. The intent of the MSBA is to have a local project that comes within getting it done within that cost. So we just don't see a history. That doesn't mean the policy couldn't take place. But there hasn't been a history of because something was sold. Remember that the selling of that property is not going to happen on day one of turning the key at the new elementary school. It'll take significant time to go through yet another process to be able to do that. It won't go as quickly as the high school project did. So we would be communicating with the MSBA at that time, and they would communicate with us. Potentially something could happen. The Jones School has nothing to do with the MSBA. Why? Because the MSBA does not deal with any reimbursement for preschools and or administrative buildings. So it's out of their purview. There would be no questions there whatsoever.
Is there anyone else on the screen?
Would anybody else from Intergovernmental Relations that's remotely logged in, would you like to ask any questions? We'll give you a minute or so.
So now we go to the public.
What? No, I was just letting everybody else go first. Now, TJ, on page 4, you had a chart that has a bunch of numbers on it to support your cost of about 65-ish, 65 million-ish.
Right.
And my understanding is this is real numbers that you guys spent a couple of years coming up with and can support all these numbers, and the expectation is that this is what it's going to cost.
Right.
And you had mentioned some other concerns about what it costs in what Groton, Dudley, something. But this is for Stoughton, right? It's not for someplace else.
Right.
Okay, go on.
So these numbers are, so the variable number is the construction cost number, of course. That's the sort of thing that we will go out to bid. I mean, the architectural will, and the project management will also, but those are more formulaic. Like, we know by a percentage what architectural engineering costs will come out. Our engineering costs will be a little bit higher, but so these costs in particular were formulated by two independent cost estimators, each coming up with an estimate, then the two of them reconciling and said, you're right on this number, you're right on that one. So for this design, this is the estimate. And this is even a little high because, first of all, it's got contingency in it, which everyone has to. But also, our project will be cost estimated at least three, but I think 4 more times before we put a shovel in the ground. It goes to the cost estimators at, I think it's 30% plan, 30%, 60%, and I think at 90% also. And if not 90, then it goes out to a cost estimator right before the bid packages go out. In the case of the high school, we didn't have bid packages because the CM, they bought out all the contracts, all the subcontracts. So in this case, there are at least 3, and I think there's even 4. Fran, you probably know all this, but in the MSBA process, it will go out. So we'll hone this down, and the building committee will be able to do value engineering at each level. We can say, and we did with the high school. Actually, this is with the high school, we had a specific type of flooring, for example, and it will look beautiful, but it was also pretty expensive. So we tapered that back. We kept a hard cap, and we'll do the same thing with this. But this cost is the Stoughton Elementary School. These are correct. These are from 2 independent cost estimators. And by the way, they're verified by MSBA.
So you mentioned the high school, which is another school in Stoughton, all right, that we recently built. And as far as I can tell, it was pretty successful. So you used the same methodology that you used with the high school. And with the high school, your numbers were pretty spot on. If anything, they were a little high.
We came in about $5 million under budget with the high school, and it should have been 7.
Okay, so this is real, all right? You're not just making this up, because
This is real.
some people have been making stuff up, all right, I think, all right, or making poor comparisons. So I just want to differentiate that that's not what this document is.
I appreciate that. Frankly, I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think unless anybody else for Intergovernmental has something, that's
Okay.
got.
Cynthia, did you want to open it up to the public?
Yes. If there are members of the public who'd like to speak, please. Someone in the back? I see you're sitting next to, I can recognize Mr. Laurie, but my eyesight is very poor. It appears that it's Ms. Lyons. Please identify yourself and your address.
Yes, hi, Lisa Lyons, 104 Curtis Ave. So I'd like to address a couple of things here. There's a lot of campaigning going on and salesmanship going on. The taxpayers of Stoughton have done their research. They realize the square foot costs from local recent buildings, that the design that our leaders chose for this building exponentially increases the cost of the project. Furthermore, the entrances into this property and the site costs are astronomical. And this relates back to what I'm going to talk about later on a different article. Everybody is looking at this project in a bubble. if we're going to take care of this town, we need to be looking at the overall projects that need to be coming up in this town. We cannot expect our taxpayers to spend millions upon millions of dollars and just that they have no capacity. There is a capacity, there is a limit with which the taxpayers are going to be overburdened. Furthermore, if the design was anywhere near reasonable or practical, it could have been planned for and can still be planned for within the budget when you consider new growth and the TIF money that's come off the books, and it's nothing short of outrageous. And the taxpayers said no, they mean no, and this article, I strongly suggest, gets voted no again in April, and it will get voted down for the myriad reasons that have been previously stated.
Do you have a question in there?
And the reasons that I stated today. No, I'm coming up here making a comment, Mrs. Walsh. I hope
That
that's okay.
sounds more like a speech than just a
Well,
comment.
exactly. I've heard lots of speeches
Okay,
in sales from lots of people.
Would you please wrap up your comments?
My comments is to the taxpayers are going to vote no. They're kicking the leaders in this town that are campaigning and trying to sell. The taxpayers were not born yesterday. They realize they're being sold a bill of goods. And it's up to our leaders to stop kicking the can down the road. And you heard TJ at the beginning of his speech say they were reluctant to redo this project. Well, they're going to have to do it again because the taxpayers want something practical and reasonable. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone with a question?
Let's ask, are there any members of the public online that have logged in remotely have a question? I'll give you a moment. If you're online, just start speaking and identify yourself if you're a member of the public. I don't see anybody, Cynthia.
I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Just on IGR though, right? Because you're going to keep your public hearing open for the other articles?
Well, this joint, yes?
She wants it, do you want to speak? She's a member of the public.
Oh, yes, I come forward. I just asked if there was anyone with a question. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. My eyesight is extremely poor.
It's okay. I wasn't sure what's gonna happen next, so I was listening. So thank you very much and good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. So yesterday, I was at the Fin Committee.
You have to identify yourself.
Sorry about that. Marina Ryans, Prison 772 Copperwood Drive. So yesterday, last night, I was present at the Fin Committee meeting, and like it was mentioned by the building committee, that there were 3 or 4 examples of the schools that were built much cheaper, and the cost was half of what the Stoughton Elementary School cost. So it was just mentioned that. So to me, it sounds like it is doable to have much cheaper design. Is it working?
Yes,
So,
I can hear you.
It is, to me, it sounds like that it is possible to have a cheaper design, and if any additional cost comes up down the road, then residents and town representatives and the Fin Committee or Select Board of Town can look at the budget, and if any additional cost needed to be added, then we can look at it. But having a 113 million school is too high. And we all just received our property taxes, and I think it's outrageous. And I know my neighbors, and people talk to me on the street and everywhere. People are crying, people are concerned, people are afraid to be forced to leave their homes just because they can't pay. So my taxes personally are increased over 300 per quarter. And I know people have much higher increase, 400 and 500 in a quarter. So with everything that is going on in the country, and I'm not talking only about the property taxes, and I know a lot of people have been attending select board and fin committee and town reps, and they've spoken, and they said, we don't have any capacity we don't have any free money to pay more. So this school is forcing really people to be homeless, to foreclosed, and I know, and I've looked at the reports. Stoughton does have a few foreclosures. People are facing bankruptcy. I know in where I live, people can pay condo fees, and I know a lot of people don't pay property taxes. So this school is a significant hike. So, and that's going to be, painful for people. So I'm asking school people, school officials, building officials, select board and members of your committee to consider all this, because we all work for people of this town, and we need to make sure that people are not suffering, and people are suffering. So imagine yourself being kicked out or not able to pay and cover any expenses, not able to provide for your children. So think about it, and it's a very serious situation. And I think what I've noticed that town officials, select board and town school officials, town officials, and select board seems like ignoring. So what's going on in the town is unacceptable. People are being censored. People are being interrogated,
Try to stick
attacked.
to this issue.
Yes. So I think there is a lot of negativity going on directly and indirectly. People are being censored. So just because they said, I'm sorry, I can't, I don't have any free money to pay for anything. So right now, with all the inflation, with all the property taxes, with all other prices that went up so high, skyrocketed, school is not on time. So I'm telling you this, I think that it is in the power of school committee and the building committee and the town to cut the price of the school at least in half. And I'm telling you right now, people will be so happy. So we do have MSBA, and I hope that the MSBA is going to approve the grant that is on the paper. It's not confirmed yet. So we may lose it as well. Not because we don't want the school, it's just, it's not confirmed yet. So it is possible that the total cost can be dumped on all of us, and we will be suffering. We want to leave. We want to feel at ease. So please consider, think about people, because someday you may find yourself in the same situation. I'm speaking from myself and from my neighborhood and from a lot of people who cried right in front of me. I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. So please, this school needs to be put on hold unless it's cut in half, and town officials with the budget, with the new growth can cover the difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? Yes. Try not to be repetitive. Well, the previous speakers have said the same thing 3 or 4 times.
Chuck Collins, Precinct 1. First of all, I think you should be a little bit more respectful to people that are having comments or questions. I believe you're being rude as a chairperson. That's my first thing. Second of all, my question is to Mr. Recupero, if you don't mind, sir. Last night at the Finance Committee, I'm not sure if I made an error or if I was correct. Last night I mentioned about with the increase from MSBA that was 66%, and then compared to the one we had before the last warrant, and I mentioned 30 million. Was I incorrect?
He's next to you.
Don't sneak up on me.
I'm sorry, could you ask again?
Yes. Last night I made a comment on the Finance Committee about $30 million since we had the increase in percentage from MSBA?
But we didn't have any, so this is the discussion we had last night, is
Yeah.
we didn't have, and to the committee members, in the warrant book from last year, in the town meeting warrant book at the annual town meeting when this article was presented, the reimbursement percentage rate was stated at 42%. That's, if you look at that sheet that you had up on the, you don't have to put it up, Bob, but in the packets, that page 4 budget summary, that's the net reimbursement percentage, but the percentage is now and always has been 65.98%. So we didn't get any more money since last spring. It's just the article that was presented in the warrant book was at 42%. And when MSBA wanted the actual reimbursement rate, not the net reimbursement rate. And understandably, it's just the timing of submitting the article. So nothing changed. We didn't get any more money. The rate didn't change. The difference is 42% versus 65%. 65.98 is net rate versus gross rate.
All right.
So I hope that explained it. And I apologize for the confusion.
No,
So,
I just want to make,
got it.
I just want to make sure I was incorrect or correct.
Nope.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your question.
Madam Chair, I think a few more people joined online. I don't know if you want to ask if anybody wants to speak online.
Well, like I said, I can't see the
Okay,
screen,
no,
so
okay.
you're going to have to pick and
Any
choose.
members of the public that have logged in remotely, would you this is a public comment section right now. If you want to speak, please identify yourself and start speaking. This is your opportunity. Okay, I don't hear anybody. Okay, Madam Chair, I'm turning it back over to you.
Okay, I'd like a motion to close the joint public hearing.
Just on this article, right?
Yeah, well, the joint hearing so that the,
You're right, you're correct. Go ahead. We have to do roll call vote, so. I apologize. Once you get the
no, I
motions.
mean,
For
do
each
I have a
committee, right?
motion to close the joint public hearing?
Anybody?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call on.
Who seconded it?
well,
I know Fran made the motion, but who seconded it?
Somebody
I did.
on the
Janice
screen did.
Schneider.
Janice Schneider, I got it. Thank you,
Okay,
Janice.
So I'm going to ask municipal operations for their vote to close or not the public hearing. Kind of dark in this room. Donna Flynn? Joseph DiStefano?
John DiStefano.
John, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Cynthia Walsh says yes. Scott Heller?
Yes.
Eileen McGuire? Fran?
Yes.
Winchell LaGuire?
Yes.
Winchell Laguerre?
I said yes.
Okay, Janice.
Yes.
Janice McKenna? Okay, that's our committee.
Okay, so I just,
Frank, go through your members.
it's good.
Get
Okay.
a motion and go through your members.
Yeah, motion to close the joint committee hearing here for IGR. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Jennifer Sears.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And now, excuse me, now the roll call. Martha Sampson. Jennifer Sears.
Yes.
Alicia Rinaldi.
Yes.
Lindsay Weber.
Yes.
Janice Schneider.
Yes.
And Frank Lyons, yes.
Mr. Moderator, should we allow the folks from Intergovernmental to vote so they can go home?
Yes. So I don't know if you heard Madam Walsh, Madam Chair Walsh, IGR, you can go ahead and discuss this article, and someone wants to make a motion either way to vote on this article,
So do we have any discussion here?
sure, you can discuss, yeah, you're gonna have to do it with people online and with Martha across the way here.
IGR folks, anybody have any thoughts or comments on this?
You need a motion.
Motion to open discussion?
No, you need a motion your recommendation to town meeting, and then you will discuss the recommendation, and then you will vote on your recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, you can say, you would like a motion to recommend this article to town meeting, or you can make a motion to refer the article to town meeting.
Well, there's
without-
three possible
Go ahead,
motions.
Cynthia, you explain.
Motion to approve, motion to recommend disapproval, and refer.
Okay, so
Someone on your committee has to make one
do
of
I
those
have a
motions.
motion to approve?
Second, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, Frank, I will make a motion to approve this article to town meeting.
I
second it.
Okay, motion made by Janice Schneider and seconded by Jennifer Sears. It's on the table now.
Okay, so now we
You can
talk?
discuss it if you want it.
Okay, IGR folks, anybody have any comments, thoughts, or anything they'd like
I'm
to
ready
say?
to vote. I'm ready to vote. I'm ready to vote. I'm ready to vote.
Anybody else? Yeah, I mean, I would just make the comment that I think it is something we should support. I don't, I understand that people have questions about how we arrived at this point, and how did we come up with the number, how did all this stuff happen? But standing where we are now, standing in Stoughton, and seeing all the additional evidence that's been put out on what could happen either way, whether it approves or doesn't approve. I have heard lots of different things. I didn't actually see the Finance Committee meeting, but I guess they had more fun than we did. But I do know that I've been kind of following this all along. I even went to some of the work group meetings to attend to see what actually was going on hidden in there, and it wasn't really hidden. The thing that struck me there is that for whatever reason, going into the first vote, I don't think everybody knew what the options were. I don't think at that point there had been really a cost associated with the mobile units. They had said we'd put mobile units out, but now they've kind of put a cost to that. And I appreciate the concerns with the cost in general that folks had said, but using the factual information we have available now, I think going forward with the school is the cheapest way out. Not only supporting our children, we've been awful worried about the cost with this, but I also think we have to think about the younger folks. Younger kids can't apply to get help with their taxes, all right? If their school stinks, their school stinks. And unfortunately, right now the South School's in rough shape. And this might be drifting off a little bit, it is discussion. My son is in the schools. He's in high school, so he would never benefit from this elementary school. But I also feel that when we were looking at that, we actually considered going to private school. We met with the principal at the time at the Wilkins, and she impressed us very much with the quality of the schools in Stoughton. And she encouraged me to get involved, which is why you're all forced to listen to me now. And for many, many years, the people in Stoughton have given strong support to our youngest and most vulnerable. But in the last couple of years, I don't know what happened, but there's people that, for whatever reason, I can't judge why they do what they do, but there is an impact on the kids. Like I said, I have a kid in the schools. I see how he's benefited from the new high school. All right, I went to the old high school. It needed to be replaced when I went, and it's good to go along. And I suspect we have a similar thing going on with the South.
Yeah, Helen's in rehab. She's at Copley.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
And she got really weak, and she's been in Milton today. They moved her.
We're getting some
Thank you,
feedback from
Jennifer.
people
Would you
online.
mute your mic?
If I can ask everybody online, if you can mute your microphones, I appreciate that. Thanks. We're just getting feedback here in the Great Hall. Thank you.
Yeah, but thanks, everybody. That's all I got to say, is that I would encourage the other people on IGR to support this. And I'm done. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do a roll call and take the
Okay.
vote? Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Well, his members said they're ready to vote, so they should vote.
And we shall. But I get to talk to. All right. Martha Sampson. I approve, yes. Thank you. Jennifer Sears. Whoop, Jennifer, you there?
Yep, hold on, sorry. Yes.
Alicia Rinaldi.
Yes.
Lindsay Weber.
Yes.
Janice Schneider.
Yes.
And Frank Lyons votes yes.
Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 vote yes. No one else is present online. So the motion passes from the IGI committee.
So now they can vote to go home.
Oh, they have to vote for the minutes first. The draft minutes? Did you,
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I think everybody read them, I hope. I emailed them. Frank, if you could ask, Cynthia, do you want to do it at the same time too at your committee?
Well, I double-checked my minutes, and she did have the right adjournment time. I am not going to go over the capitalization and spelling mistakes,
Thank you.
but, yeah, teachers retire, but they don't put down their red pens. On the third page, the first paragraph, the meeting continued with municipal operations, and there was a motion, and for some reason, I'm not included in the roll call vote.
Okay, you were there?
Yeah, so I'd like to be added. I was,
Sure.
Cynthia Walsh, yes. And everything else is minutia, and we don't have time. But
Right.
that, to me, I want to make sure folks know I was at the meeting and I did vote.
Okay. All right, Frank, if I can jump in there, could you take does anybody else have any add-ons or additions to the minutes, to draft minutes before you? Hearing none. Frank, why don't you start with your committee? Do a roll call vote to accept the minutes as written?
Do I have to make any kind of motion?
As
A motion to
corrected.
accept as amended.
Okay. you-
Go ahead, make the.
Yeah,
ask
motion to
somebody-
accept as amended.
Oh.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
That was
And-
Lindsay Weber,
And a second?
Yes.
In a second.
Thank you.
Alicia. You have to do another roll call vote, I'm sorry. Ask you for a roll call vote.
Okay, so,
Accept the minutes as amended.
yeah, accept the minutes as amended. Motion?
They made the motion and seconded, so just do a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote. Martha Sampson? Jennifer Sears? Jennifer? Nope, I think you're muted.
I think she left the meeting. I don't see her.
All right, we'll loop on back. Alicia Rinaldi?
Yes.
Lindsay Weber?
Yes.
Janice Schneider?
Yes.
And Frank Lyons, yes.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Cynthia, you want to take roll call on your minutes?
Donna Flynn, John DeStefano,
Yes.
Cynthia Walsh says yes. Scott Heller,
Yes.
Eileen, Fran,
Yes.
Winchell Laguerre,
Yes.
Janice McKenna.
She's not present.
Okay, so now,
They're accepted as amended.
yes,
Thank you. With
but
the-
intergovernmental can vote to adjourn.
Oh, did we already approve? Did we vote to,
Yeah, you vote to approve the minutes,
okay,
and you made the motion to accept the article,
okay,
and now IGR is done for the evening.
okay.
So you just need a motion to adjourn Intergovernmental Relations Committee.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Martha Sampson? Yes. Jennifer Sears, who wasn't here the first time, so last call. Alicia Rinaldi,
Yes.
Lindsay Weber,
Yes.
Janice Schneider,
Yes.
and Frank Lyons, yes.
Okay, Intergovernmental, your meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much for attending, Intergovernmental Committee members. Appreciate it. Thank you, Frank Lyons. I also should take this time with the minutes to thank Susie Gross, Assistant Town Clerk. She's taking the minutes for this meeting. We appreciate Susie Gross for being online and taking the minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. And thank you, Frank Lyons.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Frank.
Madam Chair, you want to take over?
I'd like a motion from the committee to open the public hearing for Articles 2, 3, and 4.
Did your committee take the vote yet on the Article 1? Did I miss that?
Do you want us to do that now or wait till the end?
It's up to you.
Well, we can do them all at once.
Okay, sure. Go right ahead, Madam Chair.
So I need a motion to continue the public hearing.
Make a motion to continue.
Second?
Second.
Okay. This is a motion to open the public hearing. John DeStefano. Yes. Yes. Cynthia Walsh says yes. Scott?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Winchell? Again?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've opened the public hearing, and the next one in order is the Article 2, a resolution. And the petitioner is David Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's David Lurie, Precinct 6, 18 Robinette Road. And I am going to be presenting an article that is interesting in that what it really represents is what should have happened on June 12th. There was a binary choice with the town of whether or not to go forward with this very large, very expensive school, or to say, maybe we have to go back to the drawing board and figure out a better game plan. This is the better game plan. It's not about modulars. It's not about renovating. Nobody in the town I know of is advocating for anything like that at all. So it's a false argument that there's a choice between modulars or this monstrosity in the woods off of Park Street. This is what it sounds like. I'm going to read it, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair. Is to see if the town will adopt the following resolution. The resolution asking town meeting to support a recommendation to the select board for building a new South School project for up to 300 student enrollment using debt service inside the budget. Whereas, after a ballot initiative for debt exclusion fails from votes counted in April 2025, the town of Stoughton requires a reasonable school that can be funded within the town's operating budget. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Stoughton calls for action by current policy boards, both school and select board, to remove the South Elementary School Building Committee in the event a ballot initiative to use debt exclusion funds should fail on April 1st, 2025. And be it further resolved that the town of Stoughton calls for the select board to approve a financial plan to replace the existing South Elementary School that restricts borrowing to debt service inside the operating budget and for free cash or act on anything relative thereto. So long and short of it is, there is a plan to do something inside the budget that you don't have to knock on people's doors asking them to pay for any more out of their pockets to pay for this elementary school. The money is there. I've researched it. I'll even research it further as far as I have to research it to make sure people are not burdened with extra taxes to pay for this because they're already paying enough taxes to fund this school. That's the whole point. It's not about whether or not we need a new school. It's about whether or not we fund it with the money we have. We have plenty of other projects that are going to need debt exclusions after certain debts roll off, et cetera, et cetera. This school is not meant to be a debt exclusion. That's all it is. The other part of it is, and it doesn't mention it necessarily in this article, is that we shouldn't have to tear down a neighborhood school in the West, the Wilkins, and have all this redistricting, which is really going to be a major redistricting. We talked about this at Finance Committee. There is going to be redistricting. There always is redistricting. It happens all the time. But the kind of redistricting they're talking about when you tear down an elementary school, we're talking about some major redistricting. And we don't have to do that with this article. We can leave neighborhood schools alone. And by the way, from an efficiency standpoint, and you could talk about all the efficiency in the world, sometimes you can't afford efficiency. I had my furnace blow out in the middle of that cold snap that we just had. It just got installed 2 days ago, a brand new one. And I could have bought a much more expensive system for my house, and I could have gotten all the rebates and government grants, subsidies, however you want to describe it. I could have gotten these tax rebates from the government, but I couldn't afford to reach the number to get the rebates. So why do we always have to reach for something to get this money when you can't afford to get to the money that you're trying to get for free? That's the problem here. It's just that we can't afford the number for getting all this wonderful free money that's apparently growing on trees, but it really doesn't. But bottom line is, we don't have to do that. We don't have to. And that's all I have to say about the article. If you want to ask questions, I'm more than happy.
Any questions, Fran?
I did have a question. So all the work that was put into this previous article, we would have to do a new feasibility study. We would have to do a new, which we did for $1 million. So is that dollar amount, all that previous money put into the report that you made?
Good question. So basically, you have a choice with this article. The select board, by the way, this is a resolution article, so the select board could do anything they want with this. They can say, oh, town meeting passed it, let's go forward with this idea that Dave brought forward for town meeting, and they voted yes. They could ignore it. They can say, I don't care what town meeting says, we're not doing it, it's a bad idea for the town. They could do the opposite. We could say no at town meeting, and they say, you know what, we need a plan, we got to do something, let's adopt this idea, or portions of. If this passed, and let's say they said, yes, we have to do something along these lines, they can say, we want to do a new SOI to start the process with MSBA and go after it, which is, by the way, that's really what this building committee should have done to begin with. They should have stayed with a replacement school, brand new replacement school at 300 enrolled students, which, by the way, when they started the process, was only 225 students. So let's give them the extra 75 students, okay? Let's call it 300. They could have done it 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago and said, let's put the SOI in at the right size instead of forcing this monstrosity on the taxpayers. But they didn't. So now we're at the point where we either say, let's put it in an affordable school without MSBA's help, or let's put it together with MSBA and we'll start the process over and we push it to that future date, you know? And by the way, that's why it's not really kicking the can down the road. This should have happened on June 12th. And before that, it should have been the vote at town meeting last year and the vote in June should have been on a much smaller school that we could afford. And there is a little tidbit I learned last night. I never knew this. When you do an MSBA project, you don't have to use taxpayers' debt overrides. You don't need an override. You can use town budget, debt service inside the budget without asking people to pay extra, with a grant as well. You don't have to do it this way. So that's also something interesting. So yes, there's so many things that could have happened that didn't. But in terms of where you go from here, yeah, you can do it one way or the other. It's totally up to the select board and the school committee.
John?
Yes, I have at least 2 or 3 questions. Okay, I lost my train of thought. You said you could build this school within the budget. Where's the money coming from? You have, well, first of all, you haven't done, to me, you haven't done your homework, because you should have put together a packet like the building committee did to show us what type of school you can build for half the cost. Let us see it, and then you haven't given us any, paperwork where the money's going to come from out of the budget.
Okay, are you ready for my answer?
I'm ready for your answer.
Okay, thank you. So there's, to the 2 points. Material for this article is not necessary because just like all the other projects we've ever done, nobody had a plan. Nobody knew how the high school was going to look. We just had a feasibility sheet that says we need $1 million to build a school, and they didn't come up with a schematic design and all those great data points until after the end of the line. This is the beginning of the line. So nobody does. When you think about, I want to just finish my point. When you look at what happened with the fire station, they had a beautiful committee. They had all the experts in the world. They were developing it towards a schematic design, but they had to tear down that because nobody could afford it. Similar story, isn't it? We couldn't afford a public safety building. We ended up with a fire station. But look what they did. They started by just tearing down the committee and then starting without even, we don't even have all those plans put in front of town meeting to appropriate because they already had the appropriation from earlier. They didn't have to, in other words, they didn't have to put that in front of us ahead of time. So this is the starting point to develop a plan that would look like as beautiful a presentation as you want. And in terms of where the money would come from, I think that's the other point that you made, right?
Right.
So there's a misconception about whether or not it would eviscerate all these departments. They'd be ripped apart. We'd lose services and so on. There's nothing further than the truth because last year, right about the April timeframe, we're a couple months away from the 1 year point. They did a presentation on debt service that's being used inside the budget, and it was only 2.5%. And that number's shrinking. What happens when debt shrinks in your budget? The departments are grabbing and gobbling up that capacity. Capacity on average in the state, the good towns, the ones that develop policies around debt service, they set the range from 4 to 6%, never to exceed 10. But you set up a target of 4 to 6. So if you take the 2.5%, and you bring that up to 4.5%, that's 2% of a $100 million operating budget. So think about that. That's just $2 million right there towards a project. Then you look at the new growth. New growth is coming in at what's been told as much as 1.7 million just got announced that was certified. That's new growth plus the TIF money that rolled off at 946,000. So let's round that up to $1 million. If what's $30,000 between friends, right? Is that you've got $1 million plus you've got projects that are in the pipeline. We just voted to allow assessed values to kick in on January 1st. So literally 8 days ago, we were allowed to take 50% of the taxes on assessed value of all the new projects that didn't even get occupancy permits yet. We're already can tax them now as new growth that the town. They just haven't finished all the paperwork in the assessor's office to say, oh, here's the number. Now the treasurer will go out and collect it. But it's there. And the way that the numbers they're throwing around is in the neighborhood of between $4 to $6 million. So now you got debt capacity easily within the range that you would need for a new school inside the budget. Plus you have the new growth. You don't even have to touch an operating budget department. They could stay right at the pace that they're spending right now and still be able to fund this school.
Well, it sounds like to me you're just throwing numbers out of thin air. But this we have it all in front of us. We know what's going to cost. You haven't come to us. I would feel better about what you're saying if you came to us. We had something to look at. But you don't. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I need something in front of me that has your facts and figures on where the money's going to come from, how you can build a school for half the price. You haven't got any of that. I hope before town meeting you can put something together to show town meeting. But, you know, but I can't go by numbers you're just pulling out of thin air. That's what it sounds like to me.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is that it for you?
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, are any of my members got questions?
Online, any Municipal Operation Committee members, do you have any questions to the presenter of this article?
No.
Winchell, any questions?
No.
Thank you. And
So that's
no,
it?
that's it, yep.
And I don't have any questions. It seems that this is predicated on a failure of the debt exclusion on April 2025. And we won't know what that is on February 3rd.
It's a resolution article, correct?
Well, we'll open it up to questions from the public. I see a hand in the back, and I think that's Ms. Lyons.
Hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. So to the questionnaire a moment ago with not having a presentation, so I think you may have,
Excuse me.
through you,
Yeah.
Chair,
No.
Madam Chair.
The petitioner answered the question. You are not the petitioner. Do you have a question or comment for the petitioner?
Okay, yes, so I'll rephrase, thank you. So basically, when you were just questioned about having facts and figures, is all that information not already out there, that they have to do a little bit of basic research on their own, like looking at the MSBA website, or even the budget meeting that was presented by the finance director and Tom Coulter in a recent select board meeting where they described all the TIF money and that would have answered all the questions of the questionnaire to you
Yeah.
a few moments ago?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
It's just to you. It's
yeah.
just upsetting to hear people constantly try to discount facts and expect volunteers and lay people who are prevented from making copies at machines or getting any kind of timely information. I think it's very impressive with all the knowledge you bring forth to the town in order to protect the
thank you for
taxpayer.
that.
So I'm
Yeah,
thanking
so
you.
I think the misunderstanding is that this is a resolution article. This isn't a appropriation article. It's not a bylaw change. It's a resolution. It's asking the boards, both the school and the select board, to start the process of developing the plans on a project that would be funded inside the budget. I've identified the money inside the budget as well as the debt capacity in the budget, so all they have to do is use it. So that's the point. It's the starting point of getting a project started. It's a resolution to do that. That's the point of it.
Do you have any other questions?
No,
Ms. Lyons?
I do not. Thank you.
Anyone in the audience with questions for the petitioner? Yes, Mr. Recupero, Attorney Recupero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Then thank you to the petitioner. I just have two very brief comments, not repeating anything I said in the prior article. One had to do with a comment Dave made about the capacity of the school, 225 versus 300. 225 is a number assigned to the district by MSBA for 225 students. That's a number that they use for funding purposes. So they'll fund us up to 225 students, a school for 200. We can build a school for that number with a capacity for 300 students. That's where the 300 student number came from. However, the two quick points I wanted to make were the current enrollment. I don't know what it is today. It wouldn't have gone down, I'm sure, but on June, at the close of school last year, The enrollment at the South School was 317. A 300-student school at the South School is obsolete the day you open it. It'd be the biggest waste of money that you ever spend. You'd be building an addition on some other school, and frankly, I'd rather not spend my tax money that way. The second point I want to make is we know what it will cost. Per Department of Education regs, per MSBA regs, you mix them all together and you know that a 300-student capacity school will have to be just under 70,000 square feet. A 600 capacity school will have to be just over 100,000 square feet. About 50% more, because you combine two schools, you get to use a combined gym, combined cafeteria. You're not building two schools with separate cafeterias, separate gyms. You get economies of scale by combining the two. So when you build one school and you need about 70,000 square feet, we know, as I said earlier this evening, the median square foot price in Massachusetts is $832. It will be more for us because our site costs at this particular site, and by the way, we looked at all sorts of sites to put a school. You need about 10 to 12 acres. Find us a space where you could, with all of the resources that you need for a school like that, to fit a school that's about 70,000 square feet for 300 students. It will be, just the construction costs alone will be not so much less than what we're asking for. The monstrosity in the woods part about it, I hate to bring that up, and I apologize.
Yeah, I think
I'm just saying, it's a fixed size no matter what shape it's in.
Yeah.
And we know what it will cost. And it's not all that much less than what we asked for in the prior article. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the members.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else
Can I-
with
can I comment?
Excuse me, you want to respond?
Yeah, I could easily respond because it's kind of interesting. We do fluctuate numbers of enrolled students throughout the years. We've had fluctuations. I know in the 70s there was a big burst of activity with enrollment going up, and then it would fall down, and we go through these cycles, right? And what's interesting is it's coming from the head of a building committee who was also the head of the high school committee, in which they built a school for, I think, 850 or some odd students, and they're already well past that and over close to
1,069.
1,069, but they've already pushed past that. They're already at, I think, 1,100 or more, and they're projected to be at 1,400 students, I think, in the
Those numbers,
2030 something.
Mr. Laurie, those numbers, the town couldn't change. That was based on a projection
Well, the point
from
is that the enrollments change, and it even changed on a brand-new school. So by that logic, we wasted our money on the high school because we don't have enough capacity for the students who are coming in. That's kind of a strange argument to make because we always go through these struggles, just like any other project, like a high school that's underbuilt for the number of students coming in.
Is there anyone else in the room?
Ms. Walsh, this is Janice Schneider. May I speak?
Janice Schneider's online. Is it,
The room has,
just 1 second, Janice? We're
so
just,
now we're starting on the folks in the
the remote online.
online.
That's
Zooming.
Janice Schneider. Go ahead, Janice.
If you would indulge me a moment, I put a question in the call-in messages because I wasn't sure exactly how this piece was going to work. I have a question in there, as does another gentleman who indicates that he doesn't have a microphone on his computer. My question for Mr. Lurie is specifically, what is the anticipated cost of the alternative plan that you refer to in this proposed article? And secondly, what has your research established as the beginning cost? What kind of specific money are you looking to have the town spend on your reasonable alternative?
The ability to project the cost of a project is no different now on this idea of a project than any other project we've ever done. No project has a number until they go through typically a feasibility study, especially when you're talking about these large projects. We didn't know that the high school, do I still have the floor? The high school was all the way years into a feasibility study did we discover it was a $123 million project. We didn't know that at the outset when we set up the feasibility study. We didn't know how much the fire station was going to cost until deep into all the studies that they did, because you had to start the process before you got to the number. When you start with a concept that you have to make it fit within the amount that the town could afford, I'll tell you, they'll find a way to make it work because the town pulls together and finds a way to make it work. That's usually how it works in finance. And I'm not sure how else to answer you other than to say nobody has a crystal ball until you start rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. We have the money inside the budget, make it work. That's the resolution.
So, so what I understand from your answer is that you have done research and used the term reasonable, but you seem to be unable to explain what reasonable is.
Okay.
So my question is, you have done a lot of research, and I deeply respect the idea that there's a whole lot going on here, and this is a lot of money. But I would frankly like some kind of a ballpark.
Okay, I understand the question. I'm at the risk of sounding redundant. The funds are what our budget could afford for a new school. And I laid out capacity inside the budget because we fell way below the state average for best practices in setting a debt service capacity inside a budget. You could go 4 to 6%, and we're falling below 2.5%. So we have capacity to borrow. You couple that with the sources of revenue that come from new growth and debt that rolls off, like TIF agreements that show up magically inside of a budget, and you end up with $5-6 million. Oh, by the way, in comparison, the high school, if you look at the debt information from the treasurer's office, we spend $4 million a year on the high school. It comes due 2036 is when it expires, $4 million. The project cost was in that $120 million range. This school starts at 113. You figure with interest at 4.5% instead of the 2%, you have to account for that 2% of extra of interest rate, right? Well, we're much higher than $4 million a year in new growth. We're already covering the cost of a high school plus the extra it would cost for the interest on that high school we already bought. So we have the money. All we have to do is get a project that fits within the budget so that we could enjoy the fruits of all that beautiful new growth the taxpayers should enjoy. It shouldn't be at the enjoyment of the departments that would get a lot fatter from all that new growth. It should come back to the taxpayers as goodness to them. They're the ones who have been footing the bill for so many years and told, get ready, folks, because we got a whole bunch of other things coming through that you're going to have to dig into your pocket for. This is not the right time to be doing a debt exclusion. That's why this article is on the table.
I understand that. I'm trying to circle back to the idea that there is a lot of research from within a budget, but it's up to town meeting to, as I understand it, explain how the new growth resources can get spent. It's up to the Board of Selectmen to figure out what to do with the old buildings. But what I'm hearing is your statement that you've researched, yet what in all of this, in listening to all of this, and over a year of multiple town meetings and an additional town meeting. What I have not heard, nor have I seen, any kind of a concrete plan where, yes, Mr. Coulter has said, well, we could cut back this, that, and the other department, but I have not seen I've not seen folks explain where they would take the funds from. So, for instance, we have a $113 million proposed school. We get funding from the state. It's going to come up to, I don't know, I don't have TJ's.
It's 64 million.
My point is, what are you planning on spending? 70,000, 85?
Yeah, good. Okay, so let me come back to this question. All right, so by the way, it's not a town manager's call. It's a select board and school committee's call on what the policy will be about selling properties or building new projects. It's not the town manager's job. Town manager's job is to execute on the policy that's given to them.
No argument there. And if I mistake.
No, I just wanted to make it.
Stop.
Yeah. Through you, okay.
The person on the board, you're arguing, you are not asking a question. And we're not going to have you and Mr. Laurie arguing back and forth. If you have a question, ask the question. He will answer the question. This is not a debate.
Well,
Ms. Welch, my apologies.
No, I could help with,
Wait a second, she's got the floor.
Ms.
Have
Welch,
you got
my
a
apologies.
question?
My question is specifically, what is the anticipated cost of the alternative plan?
Well,
Give me a number.
yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The high school 10 years ago was a $70 million debt after the grant against the $123 million high school. Fast forward, the interest rates went from 2% to 4.5% or so, maybe 4.25%, somewhere in that range. So let's say doubling the interest, okay? This project with the debt that we would take on as a debt exclusion would be on $64 million, which is just a few $1 million short of what the high school was. But you'd have to account for the extra 2% of inflation on interest. So you have extra money that you have to account for. So when you kind of, look at it and you say, well, wait a minute, we spend $4 million a year in a high school for $70 million over 20 years. Then you could look at it and say, well, okay, well, if I'm getting $6 million of new growth plus new debt service that rolled off to give you more money available to borrow against inside the budget, is $4 million for a $70 million project at 2%. How's that compare to another school when you have $5-6 million available with a 4% interest rate? You just start doing the math. You make it work within, you definitely have more money available than we are paying right now for the high school. We have more money flooding into our budget than we already pay in debt service on the high school. And all we're asking for is a small elementary school. We don't want a big one. We just want a 300 student school, not a 600 one. So 300 against what did you say, 1,000 student school, 1,030, whatever it was. I'm asking for a third of the size of the high school, and I want it to fit for like $5 million available in the budget instead of $4 million that we already spend. It's pretty simple math when you start to look at the order of magnitude of the difference between a big school and a little one.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, are there any other questions?
Yes, as Janice Schneider referred, Mr. Kevin Monahan from his address is 28 Daily Drive. He does have a microphone. He has 4 questions. Let me just start reading the first one. He says, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Laurie, wouldn't building a school for 300 students preclude turning Wilkins into a preschool and closing the Jones? That's his first question. I don't know if Mr. Laurie can answer that.
Well, I don't know why we have to close the Jones.
Right.
That's, if my plan went into place and we kept the Wilkins as a neighborhood school for the people who live in the west area of the town, the Jones would keep operating. We sunk $2 million into the central administration building at the Jones, which also accommodates a booming, apparently it started much smaller and now all of a sudden it's bursting at the seams with all these new preschoolers. So you find a way to make it work with the students at the Jones who are those preschoolers. I don't understand the question, because instead of transplanting them to the Wilkins, they would stay where they are, or say, sorry, there's no more room at the inn, or find a different school to house them. I don't know, towns, they get faced with challenges all the time. We pull together as a town to solve problems like that. We have 50 kids on a waiting list to be preschool. Okay, well, where could we put 50 kids? The town would pull together and find a way to accommodate preschool for those extra 50 kids. I don't understand why that's such a
Okay, well,
major
let me
question.
ask the second
Yeah.
question. Thank you, Mr. Laurie. His second question is, can a school for 300 be built for under 60 million?
The school can be built with the new growth and debt falling off available with capacity inside the budget to make, I'm sure, a beautiful school, one that has classrooms with teachers who know how to make the rooms very
That
dynamic
wasn't
and
his
exciting.
question.
Well,
His
I don't-
question is, can you build it for less than 60 million?
I am not here to come up with a project plan on something where I'm initiating a resolution article. It's an
then
irrelevant question.
To the questioner, he does not have an answer for that
It's
third
an
question.
irrelevant, it's
All right,
irrelevant
thank you
to the
both.
article.
Let me just move on to the third question. Where would this school sit, and does it include the estimated 15 million or so for site prep?
There's been a lot of work. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. There's been a lot of work already done. And I hope that the school committee, when they turn over their papers after we dissolve their committee, because the article would call for that, that the material that we already have on site work and, availability, maybe checking in with other people who know of new areas, maybe behind the South School where that is, figuring out a way to make a project work while kids are still trying to get to school. I'm sure all those plans have already been discussed, and I'm very confident that we would not have to work very hard to make a spot work for a 300-student school.
Does he have a fourth question?
One last question, Madam Chair, if I may. And his last question is, and wouldn't we have the same overcrowding issue in about 10 years? And that's his
Boy,
final question.
That's a great question, because I'm going to tell you something. The town is experiencing bursting at the seams with the number of families with children coming in. I could get into a long oration over what I think about why that's happening. I'm not going to do that here.
Thank you.
I'm sure Madam Chair appreciates that, but look, we go through cycles where the town grows in population and shrinks. We've seen it already. It's going to happen again. We're going to shrink again. Trust me, it's going to happen. We're going to shrink. And we say, oh, what are we going to do with all these schools? We have to close it down. We closed down the Jones School, but it was built when we were going through growth, or we kept it around because of growth and then decided that's the oldest school. Let's get rid of that one because we'll use the newer schools for the smaller number of students.
Do you know when
enrolled.
the Jones School was built?
I know it's old. I know
1930,
it's old. I know.
during the Depression.
That's interesting news. I don't study that, and I'm glad that you brought that to my attention. But they probably, tell me if this is accurate then, if I can ask you, is
It was
did
built
they
as-
close it because it was the oldest and with a shrinking population? Was that the cause of,
It was built as a junior high,
okay,
and then the high school was where the food pantry is.
okay.
And then they built, I guess, 1/5 of the old high school, the original building that was from the 1920s.
But why did they choose closing that middle school? I know they built
But we're
the new
not
middle.
answering the gentleman's question.
Well,
Right.
it's,
Why don't we move on?
it's, you adjust for population fluctuations all the
There's someone
time.
else online, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Carolyn Campbell, you're up next. Could you unmute your microphone and ask your questions?
How many more have we got?
I only, She might be the last one. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions about this article through you to the presenter. It's my understanding that this is a non-binding resolution, right? And it wouldn't happen and it wouldn't even be an issue unless the debt exclusion fails on April 1st. Am I correct?
That is true, yeah.
That's what his article says, but his article is coming up February 3rd, which is well before the vote.
Right, but I mean, it wouldn't go, the resolution wouldn't even take place until after that. So I guess my first concern is that, isn't this resolution an article premature? Because if you could make the resolution for the annual town meeting, if this is, if the school fails, this could go on the annual town meeting warrant and be discussed then. But right now, it's premature.
Well, wouldn't I be accused of kicking the can down the road?
Well,
instead
it's to answer your question that he has a right. Every citizen in Stoughton has a right to do something like this, and he actually collected over 100 signatures, and he has admitted it's a resolution. It's basically his suggestion of what should happen, and he will make his case at special town meeting. But it is predicated on a loss on April 1st. But even if the loss happens, this is basically Mr. Laurie's recommendation, backed up, he hopes, with the majority of the town meeting reps voting. But there's no way legally he can force the different boards to do anything. It's just presenting the material, and I'm sure he feels that there are enough people that feel as he does, that the politicians and the town administrators will feel the pressure of that opinion. But there are a lot of maybes and what ifs in this.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I think, I'm concerned that while the intent of the resolution is to to come up with a solution if the current proposal fails, I'm concerned that it's being presented as an alternative to the current proposal. And I'm not really sure that is valid, because I don't think there's enough details there to even do so. I understand that, Mr. Laurie, that you came up with the amount of $30 million for a building because you figured that's something that the town could afford within the budget to handle the annual debt service based on new growth and retiring of old debt. Is that right, what you were saying?
I don't quite remember citing that number, so maybe you could help me out.
Well, you're 30 million, isn't that what you're saying, build a school of $30 million?
No, help me out understanding where that was cited. I don't know where that was cited.
Your resolution, you're proposing that.
It's not in the article. It's 300 student enrolled.
There's no money in the article.
There's no money in the article, but you've mentioned, I believe earlier, that you could do this with 30 million.
No, I did not say that. I apologize. I don't mean to be.
Okay, so you asked him a question. He says he didn't say it.
Okay, all right.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, I do. My next concern is, I understand, the plan is to fund it within the budget by using new growth, and the retired debt that's already being provided within the current budget. But isn't most of the debt that's within the budget that's being retired will be for like police cruisers, fire trucks, trucks, computers, all the stuff that are capital expenses that we borrow, but then we have to buy again. So if we're using that debt for the school within the budget, how are we going to pay for the other stuff that we are currently borrowing under the budget and paying the interest within the budget?
Okay.
I
Fair-
think you've answered that
yeah.
there's a lot of new money, you feel, there's a lot of new
Right.
money out there that's hasn't been assigned to different places.
Yeah, can I help her, like, how it's framed, the same question? Because it's how it's framed, I think, answers is makes it more interesting, because the revenue is covering it, there's no doubt. It's just about, like, capacity inside the budget, because I also said 4 to 6% would be the right range. The scary thing was that we used to be at 4%, and I was on the Finance Committee when we tried to get a floor on how far down it went, because when it shrinks, the departments, all the money that comes off of the debt that falls off gets absorbed in the budget, and it's very hard to claw back to get back above that 4% floor. So we've already shrunk down in the 2% range, and that's what's scaring me, is that it got so far down. So, I guess the question would be is how come the budgets have already done that to the debt capacity for buying trucks and plows and, DPW equipment and all those other things? It's scary to me that we've lost so much debt in the budget for just the things you're talking about. Because
So okay, I just want to make sure I understand what you said through you, Madam Chair. You're concerned that the town should be spending more money within the budget on debt service and less money, and not have that money go to services and employees and staff and salaries and everything else. Do you want to have it at least 4% in debt service? Is that your concern here?
my concern has been that, along with many people in the town, that we
No,
don't.
I understand.
We don't
just-
have policies that protect the town from having just that happen. That you just articulated beautifully, by the way, is that how do we pay debt on those very expensive things like garbage trucks, things that are big ticket that you have to borrow for? Where's the capacity? It's been evaporating, and it evaporates inside the operating budget like, it's this giant black hole that it gets absorbed into, and it's very hard to
Thank you.
claw that money back. And it happened to us with a vacuum on policies around that. If you had policies, it would have protected us from having that happen. So thank you for identifying that, because I think you'll hear about an article about doing just that, protecting the taxpayers from having that happen.
I just wanted to make sure I understood your argument, Mr. Lurie. All right, I don't want to debate what I think of it.
Could you wrap up your questions, please?
I will wrap up. I guess, I guess my comment is that I just do not see how you're going to be able to build a school that's going to be within the budget and still be within enough of the debt service so that I can understand going from 2% to 4% or 4% to 6%, but I'm concerned that your proposal, by keeping it within the budget, would bring our debt service much higher to like 10 to 12%, which would not be recommended. So that's my concern, and I just don't know how you're going to do that without any details. And I would prefer not to have to try to figure this out until after the election on April 1st, if it gets to that, because I think right now it'll confuse the issue on the April 1st ballot. I think if it fails, then this would be an appropriate time to discuss your option. Thank you.
Okay, Madam
Thank
Chair, I
you.
just want to throw one statistic out at wrapping up that point, is that today, the debt in the town is 3 times higher on the debt that people pay out of their pockets on debt exclusion, the high school, the fire station. It morphs the size of what we pay inside the budget in debt. It's minuscule what we pay in the debt inside the budget versus what the town out of their pockets pay extra on top of their Prop 2.5 property tax. We pay much more than the town does. And that number is scary by itself.
Mr. Moderator, is there anyone else?
I'll ask, anybody online has any other questions on the public side? Anybody online? Give them a moment, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we'll
do not
close
see
the hearing
anybody.
on Article 2 and move on to Article 3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Laurie, for your presentation.
Our intention is to vote tonight because time is short before the book has to be in the hands of the town meeting reps by a week from Saturday because of the holiday. And obviously, with the mails the way they are, we've probably got only a day or two to get everything in an envelope. I see the petitioner. If you'd like to make an opening statement, please.
Hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. I'm just looking to follow up with regard to financial policies and how everything is connected. And as evidenced by the discussion here tonight, I find that town meeting reps, and based on questions tonight, are looking at things, as I said previously, inside a bubble and without an overall roadmap or plan as to how we're going to spend our money. To previous questionnaires, they're asking for specific amounts of money without going through the process or having the policies in place that will help guide the direction of the town. And so I'll read what the article is. It's to see if the town will adopt the following resolution, asking town meeting to request the town manager through the select board to adopt Government Finance Officers Association procedures for presenting annually the Stoughton financial conditions using a current financial policies manual. Whereas capital article projects are put before town meeting without a clear picture of how it relates to the goals and overall financial outlook of the town. Whereas town meeting members have been restricted from discussing how any capital spending article impacts our budget and overall goals. Whereas the town of Stoughton will become or could become eligible for more grants and improved bond ratings by entities outside of Stoughton. Whereas future debt exclusions will have more widespread acceptance by voters who have gained greater confidence in the projects that have been designed prudently and put forth before them. Now, therefore, be it resolved to ask the town of Stoughton to request the town manager through the select board to present financial reports and budgets as prescribed by the Government Finance Officers Association, set forth in the presentation by the Association of Finance Committees dated November 2nd, 2024, titled the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award, A Guide to Best Practice, or act on anything relative thereto. So,
Ms. Lyons, can I interrupt? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Absolutely.
Apologize, Madam Chair. I have your documents up here if you want me to hand them out. I don't know how you want to proceed with these documents.
well, to be transparent, I have sent this presentation that I'm going to every town meeting rep, to every select board member, to school committee members. So feel free to hand out
Would
to
anybody,
to
raise your
anybody
hand,
here.
would anybody want the documentation? You can walk up here, I can hand it out to you.
And you said you'd also put it on the virtual
It's also,
table.
yes, Lisa Lyons, it is on the virtual table as of right now.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so there's 4 sets of documents. Anybody want to come up? Just help yourself, or I can hand them out. You raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt everybody.
No, I'm glad you did. Thank you. Okay, so really on page 3, there's 3 circles. I'll actually hold it up. Thank you. That would. Oh yeah, I'll keep talking. Yep. So basically, there's 3 sets. You've got your financial policies, you got a capital improvement plan, and you've got financial indicators with a financial forecast. So we can talk about the capital plan and the roadmap. This is the type of thing. It is the select board's job to install policies. This handout is actually a starting point of what should be presented to town meeting at least once a year. So basically, there should be a budget message that articulates priorities and issues for the upcoming year. The message should describe significant changes in priorities from the current year and explain factors that led to those changes. And the message should address the ramifications of these decisions. So we have people asking questions that are not looking at this handout here, that are only ever asking pieces of this entire financial outlook and plan. It's a roadmap. So you'll see the financial policies to the left, as Mr. Laurie was talking about earlier. Debt, it's debt management. We have debt inside the budget and debt outside the budget. As he said, the taxpayers are footing an exorbitant amount of the debt to fund capital projects. That has to be looked at for inside the budget. And free cash. Here's another example. Free cash, which we all know is not free. Okay? The select board right now basically has I call it a mafia agreement. It's a gentleman's agreement is what the chair of the finance committee called it, to reduce the use of free cash, which every budget knows should not be used in an operating budget. And we here in Stoughton have been doing that for decades. Because we have been doing things wrong for decades, it's come to a place now where it's hurting the taxpayers because we don't have any of these policies in place, the best practices. We have pieces of it. To say we're going to have a gentleman's agreement to reduce the use of free cash by 300 as our budget is exponentially increasing year over year because the departments are gobbling up what should be used for debt service to fund these capital projects, it's outrageous. You're losing ground. That agreement, it should be a percentage of the budget. So as an example, at town meeting, we had a town meeting rep ask what percentage of our budget is going to stabilization funds. That's also noted on this chart here that says financial reserves. What percent is going to financial reserves? When I became a town meeting rep, I'm literally appalled that here, town meeting reps, as our town manager, accused every town meeting rep of we don't spend a dime in this town without approval of town meeting. And he's right. And that's a problem. We just presented a budget and it's just to spend without any of these framework here of capital plan, a combined 5-year project planning. And we just gave the school money to do a capital plan. They hadn't done it. The town meeting reps are saying whatever the schools, I think it was Mr. Lyons from the Intergovernmental said he's never seen the resistance. The resistance is because the town has just been spending with zero regard to having a budget, and a budget that's affordable. We all could build a castle to live in, but we can't afford a castle. So you have to a previous questionnaires point, you have to identify what your overall goals are for capital planning, and then you have to set how are we going to divide up this money with a roadmap, and that's a capital plan. But yet we were just presented by our finance director and town manager saying we're not using free cash, it's down to zero. But what did they do to fund the budget? They're gobbling up all that new growth, all that TIF money. So it's, I want to almost say it's disingenuous because they're almost trying, I call it pulling the wool over our eyes or talking out of both sides of our mouths. It does no good to reduce the free cash down to zero and then spend all the new growth that covered that free cash. The goal is to live within our means by shrinking that money. So then you have investments that are supposed to help us get revenue to fund the debt. So you've got the equipment, buildings, infrastructure. The whole point is government is funded by the taxpayers. And we need to live within a reasonable amount and stop overtaxing the taxpayers. So, I mean, I could go through this in more depth as to what is supposed to be included here. I just do want to read this page, that we should have a policy document that identifies the town's financial goals, objectives, and guiding policies. Right now, the guiding policy is just spend whatever the town manager puts before us without these policies that are here. We have to have a financial plan that presents the town's current financial condition, stating assumptions and projecting where things are headed based on those assumptions. We don't get that as town meeting reps. An operation guide should describe the municipal services and operations, measuring their efficiency and effectiveness. Here's on the schools. The Jones School, how long ago did we have to convert that school to administrative offices and make it a preschool, which took it out of MSBA ability to be grant funded? And now we're looking all the millions of dollars that it took to do that. We're looking to close that and move it over to Wilkins. I mean, this is a lack of comprehensive planning, long-term planning in this town. And at that recent select board meeting, they said, let me back up for a second. At the school committee meeting, a school committee member asked, how long will it take to develop a 5-year capital plan? It's 2 months. So how does the town manager come to the select board and say, we're not going to have a combined capital plan until July 2026? We were supposed to have Collins report policies in September, got delayed by excuses, which is not valid in my humble opinion. And then, we're definitely going to have it in December. We didn't get it in December. The Stoughton taxpayers are shrewd and rightly skeptical right now. They are done funding a hapless spending. They want to see a roadmap, and they want to see that the town government, whether it be the schools and the municipal, are working for the taxpayer, not against the taxpayer, by gobbling up all the money and not pacing all this spending.
Thank you.
I'm cutting it short because of the late hour right now.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Because I can tell the town is saving money on heating. I have congestive heart failure because of my medication.
Are you saying you're cold? That's why I might put my coat on.
And so my extremities are starting to freeze up. Fran, any questions? No questions. John? Any other members of municipal operations who are still awake and have questions?
No questions.
Any municipal ops committee members online have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody else?
So,
Questions, Madam Chair?
okay, we'll open it up to the audience. If you have a question for the petitioner. I think I see a hand, okay, next to Mr. Laurie.
Thank you for the representation. It was really educational.
Your name and address, please.
I'm sorry. Marina Ryans, 72 Copperwood Drive. It was very educational for me. So as I understand, to have fiscal policies and procedures always is very crucial to make sure that things don't go chaotic. Do you think, in my understanding, and you can correct me, that the reason we have all these expensive over-designed projects, capital projects lately, and that capital projects like library and high school that we're still paying debt for it, including interest. So now the new project that is coming, South School. So to me, it looks like lack of lack of fiscal policies and procedures. So just gives the opportunity for the town and for the school officials to have every time the over-designed projects. Do you think that's the lack of fiscal policies and makes difficult for the taxpayers to live? So.
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with the school department. It says town manager.
No, she's talking about, through you, Madam Chair. I think what she's addressing here is the lack of policies being in place guiding the leaders who are designing these projects. And what I hear her saying, it's showing a lack of respect for the taxpayers.
It just says, to me, it says request the town manager.
No, through the select, so the select board makes.
Request the town manager. The town manager does not control the school budget or the school projects.
Correct, but
So,
there should be.
well, it's just that the person making the comments doesn't seem to understand that. That this has nothing to do with the school department or a new school or.
She's through to help clarify. I think what she's.
No, you know what?
So I can rephrase it.
You have to explain what she's saying, then, that really shouldn't.
I can rephrase it. So
I don't even think it needs
it
to be
doesn't-
rephrased. This is regarding fiscal policies. The select board sets fiscal policies for the entire town. The policies, they don't tell, there's policies for the whole town. In Mansfield, they have their municipal select board working very closely with the school committee on behalf of the taxpayers, not against the taxpayers.
Well, this has got nothing to do with that. There's nothing in this that says that they're going to do any kind of work with the schools. It's strictly the town manager through the Board of Selectmen. So do you have any comment on that? Nothing to do with schools or overrides or?
yes, I just, as a question, the select board, I believe the select board owes to the taxpayers to have the fiscal policies so that the money being managed by the town manager wisely without, going through the expensive capital projects. And this can be schools, libraries, anything else, so that we have planning and we have fiscal that the town and select board has, and the town manager has fiscal responsibilities. And I believe for this matter going a little bit further, then we wouldn't be arguing today about the expensive capital project like school, and if the fiscal policies were in place. Am I understanding correctly?
Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
Anyone else? I don't want to hear one more word about schools. There's nothing in this article about schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Lurie, 18 Robinette Road, and I have nothing to ask about schools. And the Collins Center was mentioned with a financial policy document that they're supposed to be providing. There's, from what I've seen, is that a couple years ago, myself, I put forward a sample, like 12 to 15 page document as a sample policy statement, and maybe it was could be up to 20 if it was a locally created document versus going to a giant Collins Center with people that we've never met before. They're just outsourced out to this entity out in Boston, which from what I can
Just
tell,
stick to what
what
is
I
being
can tell,
proposed.
from what I can tell, is that their documents are very, very big. They're like 100+ pages, very glossy, hard to understand documents versus a locally made one. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the Collins style method of getting to a policy statement or a locally made one?
I am in strong favor of a locally made one, and in fact, it was an 8-page document that I read that you gave that is based on, this town pays for finance committee members, of which I am one, to be trained on what best practices are. And I believe that's where you came up with the policy, that local policy that you were just referring to. And at the other select board meeting the other night, the town manager is saying, we follow the Mass DOR. That is basically like a chief financial officer of a company talking about how journal entries are made, and the actual policies are actual guiding principles of how we are going to run our town to stay within a budget that protects the taxpayer. And you do that through the use of the free cash. You do that through the use of debt management. You do that with regard to having a revenue sheet. We were actually told, as being on the finance committee member by the town manager, that we don't deserve a revenue sheet. I almost fell off the chair when I heard that. That is part of a complete financial report card. We should be getting a financial report card that includes all these indicators that was on page 3 of that graph, that handout.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on the,
Online, yes, we have Carolyn Campbell with a hand up.
who?
Carolyn Campbell.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you, Madam Chair, to the presenter. I have a question, and I don't have the article in front of me because I'm at home, and so please forgive me if I'm asking a question that seems basic. Are you asking that the select board adopt a financial policy or a particular financial policy?
I am asking, and have been asking for a long time now, and was promised by the chair, Steve Cavey. Deborah Roberts indicated that they had a financial policy, which they do not, and that's also will be on the virtual table. That is a guiding principle that was never voted on. I am looking for the select board to adopt or develop the best practices by in this particular resolution, it's by the Government Finance Officers Association, their best practices. I believe you're on the Finance Committee as well, and I gave that handout at the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
And yep. So I'm looking for the select board to do its job by adopting, and it doesn't have to be the Collins report. This is the problem. It is. I hear the term kick the can down the road through you, Madam Chair. That is exactly what's happening, and it's harming the taxpayers of this town. In order to get any capital projects done, okay, we need to have a plan, and we need to do it with the taxpayer in mind. And how do you accomplish that? You accomplish that by having the select board do its job of adopting best practice financial policies, not gentlemen's agreements that is actually in effect harming the taxpayers.
Okay, take a breath so that the person can ask a question.
Right, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to the presenter. Listen, I'm in favor of policies. I'm just trying to understand what you're asking in this resolution. All right, so you want them to adopt a particular policy, and that's the point of this resolution.
That is correct. I want them to adopt what's already been created.
Okay.
And actually vote on it.
One of you has to let the other one finish.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
You were speaking and then you were interrupted.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So we have to stop. We can't continually have, in my opinion, town meeting reps because because the town manager is right about that. Town meeting reps vote on the budget, okay? I would hate to see town meeting reps come in and say no, and then have our budget be just explode because they voted no on it. And the way to prevent that is to get financial policies in place, best practices, which from every indicator, town meeting has been warned of for years. Ed Trumfio, I watched a YouTube video of him at town meeting giving a presentation on revenue and expenditures, and all the existing town meeting reps now say, that was a great presentation, Mr. Trumfio. And it's 2025 and we still don't have these in place. It cannot be tax and spend. We're harming the taxpayers at this point.
Thank you. I just have a question on what you said. I believe you said that the town meeting should not be voting on the budget.
I said I would, through you, Madam Chair, I would hate to see sensible town meeting reps come in and just say no to the budget in May because because they're so fed up of this tax and spend with zero regard for the taxpayers. That is evidenced by all these haphazard capital projects being spent at town meeting with little or zero regard to having a sense of page 3 of this handout.
So just thank you. just to understand, you want the Board of Selectmen to adopt a particular policy, or the Select Board, I apologize, on a financial policy, and you want that financial policy to apply to town meeting.
Financial policies guide, through you, Madam Chair, financial policies guide the town manager. And through the town manager, who recommends to the school board, because we need to be one Stoughton. I hear one Stoughton. We need both sides, school and municipal, working together on a combined capital plan, on a roadmap that is dictated by policy. I believe even the town manager would agree with that.
Have you made your case or asked your questions?
I've asked my questions. I don't think I'll get an answer. I don't understand the article, and
thank
I
you
haven't gotten an answer,
for
but thank you.
participating. Anyone else online?
We're reaching out to the public online. Madam Chair wants to know if there's anybody else online that has logged in remotely would like to ask a question to the presenter. Anybody online? Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone.
John has asked to ask some more questions.
I just have one question to ask. Well, first of all, I'm all for fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility, I'm sorry. But I want to go back to what you said about the finance committee has to go. You said you were trained being on the finance committee. By who? Is there a program you go through?
So what I said is the finance committee pays for members. And now we have, I believe it's 16 members. It might be 15 or 16. And only 5 of us went to this training on November 2nd. It was in Sharon. And I just think it's a shame, okay, that our taxpayers are paying for us to go to a presentation. This is the Mass Municipal Association. It was a wonderful presentation put on by other town managers. It was put on by Travis Ahern in Holliston, Mass, and Frank, I can't even pronounce his last name, in Medfield. And we also had a presentation by Mansfield with the Mansfield town manager and a school committee member. And they described to us what we should be getting as town meeting reps and what we should be expecting with the cooperating select board and school committee.
Now, how many are you on the finance committee?
I
How many
believe I
members?
just said, we should be 17. I believe, maybe, Bob, you could help me with that. Are we at 15
believe
or
there's 16.
16?
I believe there's
16 right
16.
now. We're at 16. A full committee would be 17. We're at 16 right now.
I think everybody should be required to go to those
Exactly.
meetings. I mean,
Exactly.
if
And
you're going to be on a committee like the finance committee, you need to be trained. I mean,
And we're going on-
you went to that meeting, right?
yes, and we're going on another one in January. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Hold on.
Yep. Excuse me?
Mr. Lurie just said something.
No, we're not, no.
I just want to get a, I just want to get,
Recognizing people from the audience.
I just want an answer.
Had his say.
Okay.
You're questioning the petitioner.
Okay.
All right, then I'm done with my question then. Thank you.
Right. And I've done, through you, Madam Chair, if I might follow up on his question.
Thank you. Was there anyone else online?
Madam Chair is asking anyone, second call for anybody online that would like to ask a question. Second, I assume last call, Madam Chair, online.
Okay.
I don't see anybody.
You want to ask more questions?
No, if Mr. Lurie has something to say, then I want to ask him a question.
No, then you can ask him when the meeting is over. We're dealing with the petitioner. We're not quizzing audience members.
I'm done. I already said I'm done.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not well. The cold is not helping. So Article 4, which I believe you were also the petitioner?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Don't get up.
Okay. No, I won't. Lisa Lyons.
Instead
Still
of
Lisa
reading-
Lyons.
The whole thing, could you just read,
Can I just do the whereas? Yes.
please?
I just want to do, the point for this resolution about asking the town moderator is I want town meeting reps who want to ask fiscal questions with regard to the articles that get presented at town meeting to be able to ask the questions without hearing it's not relevant to the article. When that happens, it is an utter disrespect and disregard for not only the town meeting rep asking the question, but it's a disservice to every taxpayer who's watching that may be able to learn something. That's how the only town meeting rep that I was following that led me, like I made the mistake of hearing, oh, we want more people involved. And I got involved by the select board and have been nothing but disparaged in shut down since. And I saw that happening to Mr. Laurie, and I'm like, wait a minute. These are basic questions that should be being presented to town meeting without, town meeting reps shouldn't even have to ask these questions. I'll give you an example. At this past November town meeting, we had a town meeting rep ask the question, could you please tell me what percentage of our budget goes to a reserve fund, a stabilization fund, savings account for what? Capital projects. The answer from the finance director is it's not relevant to the article. And I'm sorry, Mr. Mullen backed her up. That shut down the question, and it shut down valuable knowledge that should be given to every town meeting rep and to every tax-paying citizen. It is a form of censorship for transparency. So when I hear we're transparent and so I hope I'm making my case as why I'm asking for this resolution. It's not for just me personally. It's for every town meeting rep to learn. You've heard the questionnaires tonight be confused. They're confused because they're not getting this basic information that is best practices to the previous article. So whoever set up the way this article went, it's great because it's all connected. It's all connected. And I know we're tired, but you can't ask taxpayers to spend millions upon millions of dollars without them having a semblance of an idea of the budget and where we're going. And in interest of time, I'll leave it at that for right now.
Fran? No questions. John?
No.
I may be misreading the article, but it seems to be saying that when the body's had enough and wants to move the question, they can't.
That is not what this is intended for. It's when that is absolutely not, because I understand at a certain point, and I would like to give credit to the existing town moderator who, from my inception to the latest round, I've seen a concerted effort at least to give more balance to, you can tell when somebody's for or against something and people want to move the question. And I've heard him say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to listen to so much, I don't know what the number is, say 3 on one side and 3 on another. So that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to when somebody, a town meeting rep, wants to make a connection from an article. So where's the summary of all the free cash? It's how much is all this free cash adding up to? There's no summary there for the taxpayers or the town meeting reps to see. It's just, let's just look at every article in a bubble. And I'm looking to say, no, we can't be looking at articles just one in a bubble. We have to see how it fits into the overall plan. If we do this, how is it going to affect that? And that is the job of the town manager, based on financial policies in place, to be informing town meeting reps and the public. Did that answer your question?
I've been in town meeting for 42 years, and there's been 5 moderators in that time. And all moderators have done that. Some have specifically stated, we will not move the question till we hear a pro and we hear a con. I really do think that, at least from the cheap seats, a lot of people come to town meeting with their minds made up. And they don't want to listen to the same argument on and on and on.
With all due respect, Madam Chair, that is not what I'm referring to. Let me read the second paragraph here. Whereas town meeting representatives are continually told the relationship of financial revenue and/or spending are not relevant to an article, preventing town meeting representatives from seeing or learning a complete picture of the town's finances, which hinder comprehensive decision-making. That is the point of this article. By being told a question is not relevant to the article, I gave the example before, what percentage? That has nothing to do with moving a question. That has to do with helping people understand how an article is affecting our overall financial goals, our overall financial timing to get those goals accomplished. In other words, we all have valiant goals. Sometimes you have to bite things off in small bites. You can't boil an ocean necessarily. So you have to understand how, if we do one thing, how is it going to affect something else? That's the intention of this resolution.
Thank you. Did you have anything else? No. Municipal operation members that are on the board?
Municipal Operation Committee members online, do you have any questions to the presenter? I should say, in transparency, I'm the town moderator. I'm just here facilitating. I won't be asking any questions. I'm just here operating the computer here. So any Municipal Operations Committee members have any questions that are online right now? I don't see any, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we'll open it up to the public that are in the room if you have a question for the petitioner.
There is somebody online right now,
Yes,
Becca Moxton. You have your hand raised. Go ahead, Becca, identify yourself, please.
Hi, Hi, Becca Markson, 121 Copperwood Drive. I apologize. I know it's late. I don't have the resolution in front of me, so I apologize if I'm misunderstanding. But my question for the petitioner is this resolution for how town meetings should be run by the moderator or by the select board and town manager?
This resolution is meant, I'm assuming this would be for the town moderator to be able to deal with, because it's basically asking the town moderator to not go along with somebody like the finance director saying it's not relevant to the article, because when whomever would say it, in this case that I'm thinking of, it was the finance director, but it's also been done by the town manager to say it's not relevant to the article. And what that does is that prevents transparency, that prevents understanding. Did that answer your question?
It does and it doesn't. And another, I guess, continuing that thread is, if the moderator is an elected position and the moderator runs town meeting, then if there's an issue with how the moderator is running town meeting, then the two choices are either to do a recall or to wait and vote in another town moderator. Okay. I am not sure what a resolution would do, considering the moderator is allowed to change how town meeting is run. And for example, I know I was a town meeting rep for Howard Hanson's last year, and I believe, and I'm sure someone else can correct me, I believe we only did pro-con, whereas when Adam Dawkins became the moderator, he added in separating out non-technical questions and then pro-con. And so I guess my question is, the point that you want to create with this resolution, will it do what you want it to do?
Okay, through you, Madam Chair. Becca, thank you very much for that question, because I think it's a great question. First of all, I'm absolutely not looking to do a recall on a moderator, okay? And thank you for pointing out that it's been done more than one way. The intention of this resolution is to encourage the town moderator, whomever the town moderator is, as well as presenters of an article, to stop preventing town meeting reps from asking pertinent questions. And when I say pertinent as it relates to the overall goals of the town and the overall budget and capital improvement plans, which should be presented by best practices on the financial policies to town meeting, at least annually to town meeting, which we don't have that. We don't have a comprehensive picture. All we're given is, we were told this as a finance committee member, we're not entitled to a revenue sheet. It was absurd. Of course, you need to see your revenues, you need to see your expenses, you need to see your capital plan, and we need to know what is the goals. That's what that is what policies do. And that's how you inform and be transparent to your town meeting reps and your taxpayers. So this is I'm looking for a good faith. This is just basically a pretty please. Can we stop preventing our town meeting reps from understanding what our goals are? And it's meant to inform town meeting reps and the public, and it's also meant to protect the public, the taxpayers. Because when you have a comprehensive plan, we can make better spending. We'll know what our limits are. We have stabilization funds. I was on the finance committee last year, and under $131+ million budget, they wanted to put $375,000 in the stabilization
You're
fund.
straying a little bit from what she's asking.
Well, okay, I agree.
Did you have anything else?
Did that give you a good feedback?
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't think this resolution is doing what you want it to do. And with that, I will, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, next up is Carolyn Campbell that's online. She has her
Okay,
hands raised.
we're gonna have to recess or something. I have to leave the table for a few minutes.
Okay, let's take a brief recess, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
5 minutes should do it.
5-minute recess. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now reconvening the public hearing.
It's 10:03, and we're continuing on Article 4. Thank you for your forbearance. I just didn't think this would take over 3 hours. Now, I think we have a new questioner, and that was Ms. Campbell.
Hi, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the petitioner, all right, wait a second. All right, my question is, I mean, I understand the intent here. My question is, my question and concern is that that this might be just another way to cause another debate at town meeting about what's appropriate, because my concern would be if one town meeting member wants to ask a fiscal related question on an article and another town meeting person doesn't think it's relevant, who's going to decide? If the moderator decides it's not relevant and you want to tell the moderator they're wrong, then who's going to decide? Who's deciding what is a fiscally relevant question if not the moderator? Or what is a relevant question if not the moderator? That's my question, my concern here.
So through you, Madam Chair. So basically, town meeting representatives have been consistently prevented from asking how an article relates to the operating budget, combined capital plan, and capital projects and/or sources of revenue. These are basic questions that any town meeting rep or taxpayers should be able to get the answer to. And they're all interconnected. Again, I just feel like I'm repeating myself at this time. We can't be spending in a bubble without understanding how that spending relates back to an operating budget or our capital plan and that's all based on policies guide the budget making. Policies guide the budget. It would guide the capital planning to have a 5-year capital plan combined. I mean, these are all basic concerns, or should be for every town meeting rep.
The questioner is saying, right now, the moderator decides if something's relevant. And what I thought I heard her say is, if you don't like the decision of the moderator, who in the body decides?
It should be it is and should be the moderator's decision. Again, this is a resolution and a request to get transparency and information to the town meeting reps and the public. And just by the, I feel resistance to that. And that is the purpose for this resolution, to break down that resistance in the name of, in the interest of being informed before you spend millions of taxpayer dollars.
Am I misstating what you asked? I thought you asked, if you don't like the moderator's decision, who else do you appeal
That's what I
to?
asked.
And that's not what your answer is saying. So, or is your answer the moderator is still the final arbiter?
Of course, that's the moderator's job. Yes. This resolution is an encouraging, a requesting in the interest of being welcoming and informing, to not just, I mean, you got to have a little backbone against the resistance that you might get from a finance director or a town manager or a presenter of an article. In the interest of having town meeting reps informed, I'm not looking to usurp the moderator's position.
Did you have another question or comment?
One question or comment is, what if the rest of your town meeting members, I've been a town meeting member for a longer time, not as long as the chair.
You're not as old as the chair.
And I may already know the answers and consider myself well-informed without needing to have your questions. So what if the majority of town meeting members feel that way and they don't want the discussion to continue? Are you going to prevent that from them from asking to move the question?
Well, I'm glad you just asked, or the beginning of that question. First of all, if we're asking for more involvement from taxpayers, and we really mean it, we should be raising up new members and helping them become informed instead of trying to embarrass them or prevent them from learning. So with regard to your question, because you've been a long-term town meeting member, I would think if were doing the people's work, you would want to be helping to inform any new town meeting reps to work in the best interest of the taxpayer. So
I happen to agree that it's important to help educate new town meeting members. I'm not sure the way you are proposing to do it is the right way, and I resent the fact that you are suggesting that I don't do such things just because I don't do them in the same way that you do. All right, but I think at this point, I have no further questions and no comments.
Thank you.
I can say
Good
whatever
night.
I have until the town meeting floor.
Mr. Moderator, is there anyone else online?
Let me make the last call for the public. Anybody else online that has logged in remotely would like to make a comment? Is there? Oh, yes. Rachel Lazarus. Please identify yourself, Rachel. Go ahead.
I am trying to get it right. Okay. I'm a little bit confused as to what the purpose of adding in an extra financial component. I respect that it might feel like people are being hassled by hearing some kind of disagreement at some point, but I think that's kind of in the game of, everyone is allowed to have their opinion. Not agreeing with someone is not harassment, obviously. And it just kind of seems like Lisa agrees that the moderator is the final arbiter of this. So this is kind of, so if what the moderator says goes, then we would all accept the moderator. I've noticed at times that what the moderator says is not accepted, and that makes town meeting last even longer. And you were just talking about barriers to entry, Lisa, and I think that's a great point, because I know that for someone like me with small children, with my friends who have small children, it is very difficult for us to commit to running for town meeting rep, because it's such a lengthy commitment. It's 7 nights last May. It was 2 nights in February. It takes so long. Why are you asking to add more to it when the information could be distributed ahead of time? There should be more discussion ahead of town meetings so that I know that there's open meeting law, but there should be people being able to be prepared before they attend town meeting. They know the questions they want to ask. That's just my take.
That's your comment. It's not a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't think you need to respond
Correct.
to a comment. Was there anyone else, Mr. Moderator?
I'm asking anybody else online that has logged in remotely, members of the public, anybody have any other questions or comments to the presenter? Let me just check with the chat. Madam Chair, I don't see anybody raising their hands.
Well,
or-
I'll accept a motion to close the public hearings. I need a second. Okay, I'm going to ask whether you feel we should close the public hearings. Donna? Donna has joined us.
She is. She is.
Oh, I'm sorry. John?
Yes.
Cynthia says yes. Scott?
Yes.
Eileen? Fran?
Yes.
Winchell?
Yes.
And Janice McKenna. So the public portion of the hearings is over. I thank the petitioners. I want to apologize that my health has made me crankier than usual. And now we're ready to decide on what our recommendations are going to be on the 4 articles. Now, remember, you can make a motion. Join us. Donna, come to the table. You can make a motion that we recommend approval. You can make a motion that we recommend disapproval, or you may make a motion that we refer to town meeting. So I'm open to a recommendation for Article 1, Elementary School Building Project. Has anyone got a motion?
Yes or no, right?
Well, it can be yes, no, or refer, meaning we don't have enough information or we just don't want to make a decision.
I vote yes to
Motion
go to town
approve.
meeting.
Okay, so you're making a motion that we recommend the article to town meeting for approval.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll go down through the list. The motion is to recommend approval of the South School Building Project. Donna? Yes. John?
Yes.
Cynthia says yes. Scott?
Yes.
Was that a yes or no? Okay.
Yes, that
I'm
was a
sorry.
yes.
My eyesight, my hearing, everything is shot. Evidently, after 10 o'clock, systems start to shut down. Fran?
Yes.
Winchell?
Yes.
And Janice? So that seems to be a unanimous vote for approval. Now we get into the other articles, which are basically resolutions. And we have the same choices. We're either going to recommend approval, recommend disapproval, or refer and let town meeting sort it out. Do we have a motion on Article 2, which is to support a recommendation for building a new South School project for up to 300 student enrollment using debt service inside the budget?
I recommend Article 2. How do I phrase that?
So do you recommend approval or disapproval?
Approval.
Okay, well, the recommendation then is to approve that article. Donna?
Approve. Well, I already did.
Oh, well, wait a second. You made the motion. Who seconded it?
No one seconded it.
Okay, so we need a new motion. Refer or disapproval.
I approve Article 2 to recommend, sorry. I can't remember what I'm supposed to say.
It may be me. Initially, your motion was to recommend approval.
Yes,
You didn't get a second.
Right.
That means that motion is dead. That only leaves to recommend disapproval or recommend we refer.
refer.
Is there a second for referral? Guess not. Well, there's only one motion left if we're going to make any recommendation at all.
Motion to disapprove.
Who made, oh, was that Scott?
That was Scott Heller. Motion
Okay,
to,
and Fran
disapprove.
seconded it. Okay, I'll go down through. Now, we're recommending disapproval of Article 2. Donna?
Yes, disapproval.
John?
No.
Cynthia says yes. Scott?
Yes.
Eileen? Fran?
Yes.
Winchell?
Yes.
And Janice. So that's, sounds like a 5-1?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
5
but
to
our
1.
recommendation is disapproval.
Madam Chairman, before we go any further, I'm a little confused on it, because I wanted originally to vote yes on that, but I was confused.
Okay, so what you're saying is you voted no, but you meant yes.
Well, I wanted to go to town meeting, but you said refer.
Well, refer means that we don't make a decision, town meeting will make the
That's
decision.
what I want.
Well, we voted,
All right.
so we voted to 5-1 to disapprove. Is that correct, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Madam Chair, 5-1, motion to disapprove Article 2.
Is there anyone else who was confused? Maybe I'm being, well, I think I tend to be too bossy. We're heading toward the witching hour. So we're up to Article 3. And this one was request the town manager through the select board to adopt Government Finance Officers Association procedures for presenting annually the Stoughton financial conditions using a current financial policies manual. Okay, we have the same three choices.
I'll let them deal with this first.
I make a motion to disapprove Article 3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
John, okay. Let me go through again. Donna? John?
Disapprove.
Cynthia is a disapproval. Scott?
Disapprove.
Fran? Winchell?
Disapprove.
Okay, so that seems like a 6-0.
You are correct, Madam Chair, 6-0, motion to disapprove passes.
Okay. And the last one is number 4, asking the town meeting to support a recommendation to the moderator for allowing all town finance questions and pro-con debate during article deliberations. We have the same three choices.
Move to disapprove.
Did I hear you say something, Scott?
One more time,
Motion to
Scott.
Disapprove.
You made a motion to disapprove.
Okay, Scott made a motion to disapprove. Is there, who made the second?
Who seconded it?
I did.
Winchell
Oh,
seconded.
thank you. Okay, this is a motion for disapproval. Donna? John? Cynthia disapprove. Scott?
Disapprove, yeah.
Eileen? Fran? Winchell?
Disapprove.
And Janice? Sounds like another 6-0 for disapproval?
You are correct, Madam Chair. 6-0, motion to disapprove passes.
And now everybody's favorite motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
That was by Winchell Laguerre.
Who seconded that? I did. John did? Okay. One last time, folks. We'll do it the other way. Janice? Winchell?
Approve.
Fran? Yes. Eileen? Scott?
Yes.
Scott?
That was a yes
Yes.
from Scott.
Okay. Cynthia says yes. John?
John says yes.
Donna? Donna says yes. Yes. And once again, thank you for your attendance, whether in person or online, and for your patience with cranky Cynthia.
All right, the time is 10:23. The committee has
10:23.
adjourned. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you for being online, too.
Thank you for all of your help, Mr. Moderator. I really can't see the screen. I mean, I can
welcome,
see the
Madam
screen, but I
Chair.
can't read it.
Thank you all, committee members, and to the public. Everybody have a good evening.